Welcome back to the home studio and welcome to episode 86 of the Stevie Richards Show. I must have said that very, very loud because James was just doing this with the headphones and the ears. This episode is what we call the nice episode. We're going to be discussing the career as a retrospective format, maybe not retrospective. There's one thing here about Flair and maybe a future match, but I'm going to let my co-host James Romero, as he kind of rolls his eyes when I say that, turn it over to James. How are your ears doing from the very loud intro?
I was just scratching my ear. Is that why you started
I almost
shouting?
went right to you. I almost went right to you. That's the game I play on the intro now.
I do have a habit of fiddling around with stuff or like writing something down while you do the intro now, so I'm into it. Well, let's go to the intro straight away because we've got a lot to talk about Ric Flair. We've got a lot of news as well. So there's my channel, the James Romero channel out there that I cover some news on that one. And then Stevie's got Stevie Richards Fitness, of course, which you're going back to the reviews once again, as well as the historical documentaries and fitness. Still waiting for WBF, the World Bodybuilding Federation.
Yeah, I got that in the queue. I got Ico Pro and WBF, and I'm looking for that clip of Brett saying he just give the Ico Pro to all his neighbors when it would be delivered. Yeah, those are kind of, but I got to look, we do our assessments and we look at kind of the trends and the content. I literally sat there. I did my James Romero style fitness video. I sat there, I edited some stuff, but it was mainly low effort, conversational, using the Concept 2 Strengther, pretty cool piece of equipment. And I said, I wonder how this is going to do. In less than 24 hours, it has more views than the overly produced documentary in one. So you're right. Low effort. I can't help myself. I'm still going to do the high effort stuff.
With I say low effort, I just don't do any editing. I just do a lot of effort in the script writing. So yeah, I'll average 3 pages for every video that I do, and then I'll constantly refer to it, and then I'll forget about what I wrote, and then just continue anyway, and just go off piece constantly. But yeah, there's low effort, but there's also low effort on the surface.
No, I know what you're saying. It's more organic. It's more organic and not produced. I will say this. I inserted stuff just to kind of make people laugh, or as we say in the business, pop the boys. We're going to talk about a wrestling term in just a minute. But I did it, and it's very organic, and it felt good, and I was using the machine, and I was inserting things like as a joke, like, man, I wonder why my back hurts. And then there was clips of Goldberg destroying me. I wonder why I'm still wondering why my back hurts, being in the back with Nintendo, original Nintendo Entertainment System. So it's just kind of a fun little video.
That one that you did a month ago did really well. The Rise and Fall of Beach Bodies. Yeah.
Yeah, but then they say, we want the, like they say that sometimes we want positive. They wanted the MLM one, and it did a fraction of the Rise and Fall of Beachbody. I'll still continue to do it because I want to become a better filmmaker and a better editor. So for my own personal fulfillment, but it's just like you've said it before. I mean, we're being transparent. I believe the fitness channel, I'd probably be better off just starting a brand new fresh channel, like a Fitness Over 50 or something like that, because it's pivoted a couple times. And like you said, it's never a good idea to kind of turn, as Matt from the Undertaker podcast kind of knows now, it's never a good idea to just kind of pivot a little bit. The subscribers aren't coming back. So I may have to just do a fresh one.
There's also the cameo, the Stevie Richards cameo, of course. Many, many requests every single week, and the reason is he's getting 5 stars every single week. And we keep getting comments as well on the main shows, especially saying, man, this is a great video, made me really happy, more than worth the money, etc. And once again, as I keep saying, he gives away way too much for way too little for them. That's why he always gets those 5-star reviews. So get them before I finally convince him to up those prices, for goodness sake. And of course,
I'm still in Ric Flair negotiation mode, so I have to change that, as we termed it last week.
Ric Flair negotiation mode.
Yeah, I said I have the Ric Flair negotiation skills because I took much less for just like he did for his deal. When we looked at the contracts with WCW and WWE, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was like 14th best paid. It's bizarre. I mean, he's still well paid and everything, but I mean, if you're spending it all in the bars on trays of kamikazes or whatever.
It's a nice episode, everybody. A nice episode, James. Let's veer.
Okay, right. So Patreon, and there's also the most important thing we like to say is the Stevie Richards Show Patreon. Nearly 1,500 members now. It's a really, really great thing. And unlike most people who do Patreon, we just keep giving more and more for the exact same price. and not getting burnt out like most people do when they start a Patreon as well. And I guess the main hook, or one of the main hooks, is the Monday watch along, which for next Monday is going to be Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan in their only, I've got to be very careful how I say this, their only singles match that was broadcast on like a regular show aside from the WWF at Madison Square Garden on the MSG network.
Correct. Yeah, and are we doing the bonus watch along for this coming Monday along with that?
Yeah, it's all in the same video as well. So we also have Stevie Richards versus Ric Flair and their backstage interaction prior as well. So to set up the little story. So we've watched all that, and that's all coming out this following Monday on the Stevie Richards Show Patreon. Links in the description, links in every comment, I'm sure, as well. If Stevie's catching them as well. I'm making Stevie go on and pin the Patreon link comments all the time now.
Yeah, he's a good boss. He has me doing some good work for the company.
Well, in fairness, it's 7 p.m. for me and it's 2 p.m. for you, so I feel that's out of office hours for me.
I do not begrudge myself doing that. It's very good. And of course, we appreciate all the interaction we say at the end of every show, not only on YouTube, but on Patreon. And of course, that match with Ric Flair you're going to see on the watch along it's the final version, but it's around the 12th to 14th version that we talked over throughout the day. It really did resemble the night of upsets in Salt Lake City, Utah for Nitro. And I don't know, I'm sure somebody upset somebody that night in Philadelphia, which, by the way, I got booed in my hometown, but I would expect that versus Ric Flair.
So we're going to go straight into that story because I know none of this. And I think it's like the second time you said that is like the 14th iteration of what the match was going to end up being. But for, and once again, another way of encouraging people to sign up for the Patreon, because we actually watch the entire match and also the pre-show. Well, it's on the show, but it was filmed earlier kind of thing, which it would have been, I guess. The interaction with Ric Flair where you sucker punch him basically and call him old and washed up. And I don't know any of the backstory to it, but you have intimated that there's quite a lot of backstory to this match. And can you give us the where it was? So it was in Philly?
Yeah, correct. At the FU Center. They used to call it the First Union or FU Center. In Philly, the FU Center is a good name.
So the FU Center with Ric Flair, this is 2002, summer of 2002. So straight from the beginning then. So how did this match come up?
All right, so everybody gets to the building. I've said it before. I get there way, way earlier to get catering and then go hide in one of the sky boxes or luxury boxes and play some video games. I did that this day, but basically someone clued me in around 12:30 or so, knowing I would be excited and said, "Hey, man, you're going to wrestle Ric Flair tonight." And I was like, "No way. Come on, man. I was back then. You're ribbing me. You're playing a joke on me. You're pranking me because this is definitely a bucket list thing for anybody at that particular time, especially." He's like, "No, I think it was Lanza or it wasn't Korea because I would definitely remember that because he would bury me or say something mean to me at the end of that. It might've been that or one of the boys, but I believe it was Lanza that came up to me and said, you and Ric Flair are going to wrestle tonight." And I was like, "Oh, wow." No questions about who cares about who's going over or whatever. I get to wrestle Ric Flair, and you can hear the nervousness in my voice because I'm kind of going back there. I was like, "Oh man, I hope I can keep up. He's a cardio machine, and I hope I don't forget anything before we even talk or it's changed or anything." But I'm very nervous hearing that, very excited. And I'm also saying, okay, well, how long are we going in my mind? Hopefully as long as possible. You're getting these thoughts through your mind. Then you go through the thing, even though at that time, go up to Rick, say hello, small talk, whatever, or just hello in passing or any of that stuff. Not really anything that crossed Ric Flair in any kind of detailed way up until that point, except saying, "Man, I've been a huge fan of your work," talk about certain matches. And of course, he's very gracious with his time on that, but nothing more than maybe 3 minutes or so. The only detailed thing I ever saw from Rick was when Bischoff was coming in that first night and Rick lost his mind and was kind of like yelling at him and cursing at him. This was the second most detailed interaction, either witnessing or talking to Rick. Now, as a younger wrestler, no matter what, even with wrestling since 91, this is 2002, been in WWE for about 3 years, I'm still that independent wrestler going up to a name that just came in for the indie show. And I'm like, how do I even approach him? What do I do? And do I even tell him we're working? What if it changes? You know what I mean? You get all these thoughts like, well, I don't know. I don't want to say anything stupid. And this is still during the time. And I know I'm giving a great sense of detail, but if you ever wrestled, you understand a million thoughts going through your mind in a world where if you say hello the wrong way, you're either getting fired or getting buried for months. So I go up to Rick, I catch him in the hallway, and I say, hey, Rick, how are you doing? You know, he says, how are you doing, Stevie? I go, I have some exciting news, and I hope it's totally true. We're working tonight. Whatever you want to do, it's an absolute honor and privilege. And I have to tell you, honestly, right off the bat, I'm very nervous. And he was cool about it. You know what I mean? He could have very easily just been like, oh my God. He was like, oh, it'll be easy. It'll be the easiest match you ever had. Don't worry. We'll figure it out. Who's the agent? I go, I think it's Lanza. I'm not quite sure. But I'll be around if you need anything. I go, I don't want to bother you or any of this stuff, but if you need anything, let me know. If it sounds like I'm kissing Ric Flair's butt, of course I am. I'm being very respectful. And when you have somebody who's a veteran, dare I say it, a legend, even especially at that time, and even more so in years after, you want to be available for them in the orbit to where if they're like, I feel like talking the match over, you're within eyesight. So I'm kind of shadowing them, but I'm not stalking them. I'm staying around. Go ahead.
I was going to say, that's exactly the same thing as you said when you wrestled Savage.
Yes.
Is that not? Yeah.
Exactly the same thing. And this was just like if you're an independent wrestler and somebody comes in, even this day and age, you want to make sure you give them their space, but you're also completely available to them to do anything. Or, dude, even when I was like, hey, Rick, I'm just going to go use the restroom real quick, but I'll be back and whenever you're ready to talk it over. That's the kind of stuff that, like, if they're ever saying, like, hey, Rick's ready to talk the match over, where's Stevie? Well, you can't find him. They can just do it, or like just scan. All you got to do is scan like 1/4 of the building. I'll be somewhere in like the first or second row, you know, or in the ring during the workout or the tryout time to make sure somebody knows exactly where I'm at. Is it exhausting in a way? But guess what? I get to wrestle Ric Flair that night, and I'm just praying it's not a prank. It's not a rib. They're not trying to wind me up, and it's just not going to change because between 1 p.m. and 4 p.m., we're actually more accurately after that production meeting, which lets out between 12 and 1, plans do change, pal, up until 4 p.m. And the match didn't change, but everything surrounding absolutely did.
So you know you're going to wrestle him about 12:30 or so, or you first get wind of it, or Lanza tells you. When did you realize you were also going to do a pre-tape as well? Was that a last-minute thing, or what?
That I don't know. I think I was just focused on the match. They might have said you have a pre-tape with them too, which at 12:30 might have been too much. You know, well, you want us to interact? I go, all that stuff. So maybe that was something during the course that was added into it. I know that had a lot to do with the Jeff Hardy thing in the beginning where they interacted and then I was kind of off to the side. I believe that might have been something that was confirmed after the 4 p.m. thing when they really do kind of like lock everything down for the most part. And then we had to find out where we're going to do the pre-tape, when, and it wasn't like a 6:30 or 7 p.m. thing. I know it wasn't long after that last meeting when unbooked catering starts at 4 p.m. My one time I happily no-showed unbooked catering. So, and then we just walked through it and it really was one take. We'll get to the meat of the promo, which was almost as long as the match.
I like the idea of Tommy Dreamer, you know, doing the Pulp Fiction thing. Where's Stevie? You know, just wondering where you were.
Now, if I was doing something embarrassing or if I was doing something where they were completely like, he'd walk by me. I was like, man, I wonder who I'm working to. Hey, wacko, you're wrestling Heidenreich and he's going to kill you. That's the Dream Smasher. I call it a dream buy, you know, where he goes by and smashes your dreams.
So the backstage vignette is like, what, 1 minute 40 or something. The video is on YouTube if you want to go and see it for yourself. So Jeff Hardy walks in and Ric Flair's doing the low-key Richard Flair voice of hello, sir, you know, and I just want to say it was an honor and a privilege, et cetera, et cetera. And Also, the WWE speak of, I hear that you've got a very important European Championship opportunity tonight on Raw.
I hear you, Jeff Hardy, have the opportunity for the WWE European title. And you, Jeff Hardy, are going to, I don't even know who's wrestling or anything, but yeah,
Yes.
we call that pre-tape ease, that language.
It's the enigmatic superstar, Jeff Hardy. Nice to see you again. So Jeff leaves, and then you're in the background, you're reading the Philadelphia Inquirer, and then put your paper down, you walk up to him, basically tell him he's old and that he's in the way of young superstars such as yourself from climbing up the ranks because he's hogging all the TV time, which in kayfabe doesn't make any sense, because surely the people who win the most get the most TV time. Isn't that always one of the weird things, that how that came up at some point, like veterans are hogging the TV time, which might be the case in real life but shouldn't be in storyline?
Yeah, there was something looking at that match, the pre-tape. Obviously, I'm not gonna counter anything. I'm not gonna ruin my chances to have a pre-tape and a match with Ric Flair. I'm the most agreeable I've ever been, So I'm looking at this, and I am saying with the word. First of all, I didn't mean what I was saying. You know what I mean? Didn't mean any of these things that I was saying. But also, there's tropes in wrestling, but this tenet, more so than a trope, rings true. So anybody that's a indie worker, anybody who's working an angle with anybody who's a legend or has way more, experience or cachet on TV than you do not bury a person, especially if they're going over. You do not. Now, I will say this, the context was Ric Flair was having some issues on TV before this. That's why I said the line, quite frankly, Rick, you haven't looked legendary as of late. That there was a downturn of something where he didn't know if he could do it anymore. He didn't know if he had it anymore. And this was 2002. Obviously, years later would be the retirement match. So this was the old, do I still got it? Do I still have it? And I was the person provoking him, saying, no, you don't have it anymore, trying to goad him into a match or something, or just burying him. And he says, you know what? I'd like you tonight, for a match. And I'm telling you, when he said that, dude, I was like, oh, you get that, you feel like a jellyfish or something. You're just like, oh my God, look, I got goosebumps thinking about it, dude. It's and when people say that, hopefully they take it the completely right way. When I'm looking back at that, yes, I am absolutely looking back at that. And at the time, as a wrestling fan, as a mark that grew up watching Ric Flair, I'm still going to pull my end of the match. But this is a bucket list moment that I wish, just like Hunter and Sean and other people, whatever personal issues or anything that had developed over the years, those are the kind of guys, and Ric Flair is at the tippy top of that list of, I will come out of this business as healthy as possible if I wrestled Ric Flair every night. And it's an amazing experience that I wish every pro wrestler could have with someone they grew up watching.
So Ric Flair challenges you to a match later on that evening, of course.
I should have said no.
Yes, no, busy.
No, I will not let you tell me something. Go back to the locker room.
And then you sucker punch him. Do you get the absolute nerves? Because you've thrown 100,000 work punches by that time. But this one's on Ric Flair. Do you get the nerves that you go, man, this is going to be the first physical interaction kind of thing? And you worried about potatoing him? Or do you just do it?
No, I wasn't worried about potatoing him, because years and years and years of Raven instilling in me to throw a good working punch. And then when I throw a good working punch, throw a great working punch. Those are the guys. Also, the way the camera was framed, if you notice, I didn't get really that close to his jaw, because the camera was here and I threw it. So basically you see my fist here and it kind of blocks off his jawline. So yeah, I wasn't any more nervous than I would be if I was throwing a work punch at you or anybody else. We wanted to take care of everybody. And I was smart enough to know that I've overthought this and I became too worried. What do you do if you worry about stiffing somebody? If you're so worried, like a Heidenreich was so worried about stiffing me, what do you end up doing?
Mm-hmm. Hurting
Stiffing
them for real, yeah.
Hitting them harder than if you wanted to on purpose. Mm-hmm. So no, I wasn't particularly nervous about that. And I wasn't even nervous about the interaction. But dude, I'm telling you what, Nobody knows what it feels like unless you're a worker or unless you're in a face-to-face situation with somebody that you grew up watching, you interacted with, but when there's a camera there and you're looking directly into Ric Flair's eyes and that intensity, and you have to match it, if not overshoot it with being a heel, it's a very, very surreal experience. Even looking back on it like 24 years later, it's like, man, did I really do that?
He then does something unexpected, as you said on the Patreon, that you weren't anticipating.
No, he bumped on the floor backstage, like the hallway where the locker rooms were. I threw the punch and I expected him to kind of, kind of swing the head around, maybe drop a little bit to a knee or drop down and then look up. He took the full Ric Flair hip bump, and the weird part was, thank God it was one take. I hit him, he bumped. You see me walk off screen. When I get about maybe 8 to 10 inches off screen, I go, I'm like, I don't know if you hear the gas. I'm like, oh my God, Then he got up and came up, shook my hand, hugged me. I was like, dude, are you all right? Are you all right? Yeah. And he goes, why? And I go, you bumped. He goes, well, what did you expect me to do? And I go, not bump. You didn't have to do that. And he goes, that's okay. You'll be bumping plenty tonight. I go, well, you got a point there.
Was the promo scripted or bullet points?
It was bullet points, but the Roaring 20s and the Jurassic period was the points to hit. And then they just told Rick, just say you want to match with him tonight. Stevie, sucker punch him. There was no lines outside of you have to make him seem ancient. And they said Roaring 20s, Jurassic period. Everything else was just kind of between us. And we knew the meat of the whole backstage pre-tape was him and Jeff. That was more than what we had. We're about even. But yeah, if they did want me to script lines, I would do it. And then just kind of, I think even Rick and I were like, I was like, so when do you want me to hit you? It's like, well, when I make the match, say something, act like you're like, whatever, whatever old man or something like that, turn to look away. And he even said to me, don't look back at me, then punch me in one movement which kind of looked, you know what I mean? Looked like he did sucker punch him instead of, yeah, turn around, then hit straight. Very minute detail, but that was him who said, start throwing that punch before you even turn around to me.
One more thing that I forgot to mention is that, and you said this on the Patreon as well, is that when you start poking him in the chest and you say, have you noticed that I'm not actually touching him? And you just said that was a respect thing. So just as a fan watching in, and obviously over the years, you kind of figure out that's not how it is. But you kind of imagine every wrestling locker room for the most part, especially in WWE, when you're younger, it's like everyone talks to everyone. Everyone kind of gets on with everyone for the most part. Turns out it's nothing like that. But I would have thought that if you poked him in the chest, that wouldn't be like a respect or anti-respect thing. You're both in character as wrestlers, but you didn't want to actually make that kind of contact for reasons.
Well, there's two reasons. Number one, in a real sense, I had the utmost respect for the performer, and I'm not going to poke him in the chest like that. Even more importantly, in the storyline, the pre-tape leading up to the match, what did the pre-tape end with? Physicality. So I didn't want him to think there was any part of this that was going to become physical backstage. So when I pointed at him, I was really, I got close. I got closer than I probably wanted to, but also that enabled Rick, instead of us to just look at each other, I loved what he did. I did this. I didn't touch him. He looked down at my finger and he looked off, like almost breaking the fourth wall, and said, can you believe this guy is like putting his finger in my face? That's kind of what I got from it. But no, there was two parts, but in a storyline sense, for that night, it worked out better because I did not put my hands on him until I sucker punched him. If people are like, man, that's really overthinking it. Well, the business could use a lot more overthinking in a way.
So let's get to the match itself then. You versus Ric Flair, the Nature Boy himself. This was, I've already lost it. It was like August or July of 2002 on WWE Raw. So how are we going to do this? Are you going to watch the match through, or is just a few things that you want to bring up during the match? Oh, actually, before we do, I'm so sorry. This wasn't the original version of the match, so let's talk about the planning.
This was the final boss, the final version of the match. But there was at least 12, there had to be at least 12 different versions. And I'm not talking about scrap the whole match and do this, although there were a couple of things with that. And by the way, there was no version of this where I was going over. So, and I was completely happy with that. I didn't even, dude, this is one of those things where I didn't ask, not because, of course, it's Ric Flair. I didn't ask because I didn't care. Just don't change the match. And once the pre-tape happened, I was like, if the match doesn't happen, at least we can get a week of build-up and I can talk crap and maybe do more promos. Like, that would be the only benefit of not having the match that night. So, like, oh, you were scared to fight me in my hometown or whatever. But initially it was a straight-up match, Ric Flair winning. Okay. Then there was a couple little tweaks to the percentage. 50-50, 60-40, 90-10, 100-0, 90-10 on my side, with Rick slipping over. This is even more, how should I say, stressful than the finish. The finish is the figure four, and I asked Rick if I could tap rather than doing this to kind of make it more of a legitimate submission. He goes, I don't mind, do whatever you want. I go, I just want to make the most out of it. And then they come back with another version. And the only thing we knew was that Ric Flair was winning with the figure four and I was tapping out. Then there was some stuff about going to the outside. Then they told Rick not to go to the outside. And he came to me after like the 8th version. And he was like, are you getting sick of this? I go, not particularly. And he goes, why? And I go, because I'm wrestling you tonight. He probably got tired of like getting so many compliments that day. I was just like, I don't care. I go, I just want to be there for you. Whatever happens, I'll bump, do whatever you want. And he was just like 9/10 version. It was just like, okay, Rick's going over. It's going to be 90-10. Then it turned into a 100% squash outside of that little, heat I got towards the end with the backdrop, other things. Rick was super cool about, how do you want to go into the figure four? And I said, dude, I thought it was like one of those traps. Like, you're doing this to where you'll go to Hunter and Sean and say, hey, this kid thinks he can call a match and tell me what to do. But he didn't. He was like, if you have a unique way to go into this, and we can do it if we're going to watch the match. If you have a unique way, I was like, yeah, I think if I can do this, and I've seen you do, I go, your forearms are just awesome. So if I hook you for the suplex and we end up in a side headlock and you hit me, then we can go into the finish somewhere there where either you drop me on the leg or you belly to back me or whatever you want to do, Rick. And that's kind of what it was. There was these foundational, we'll be in this position in this hold or something, and it's Ric Flair. I know what Ric Flair does. So I know if he grabs my leg, I'm going to be dropped across into the figure four. I know if he grabs here, I always want to take his belly to backs, by the way. They're so awesome. Much better than Ken Kennedy's, according to Randy Orton. So I should have got up and started punching the mat and get mad.
And then got John Cena and went to Vince.
That was this was many years before that. So, but if it was after and I was in my current form, maybe it would have happened. So the whole day, even with the 12 or whatever different variations with the match, it was definitely probably one of my favorite days in WWE and one of my favorite nights, obviously, wrestling the match.
So on that basis, we can't watch the entire match, of course, because of YouTube, but we can watch a few select clips here and there. What do you want to specifically bring up?
Well, I'd like to bring up, if Chris can just B-roll, I'll just try to recall in my mind. I don't have to. It's we just watched and I remember it. But basically, when you see me going around the ring and the more bugged out my eyes are, the more nervous I am, and they're pretty bugged out. And I kind of have a little bit of the happy feet, the Hot Wheels feet, just trying to figure out a thing to do. And dude, when he locked up with me and we started doing stuff, every rumor about Ric Flair having paragraphs of conversation with you during a match are absolutely true. It was like we're talking now. It was the most surreal thing, the most comforting thing to know that He's talking to me. How you doing, buddy? You doing good? Let's go to the corner. Here you go. Watch the chop. But I, it was, I would have been blown up talking as much as he talked to me. So, it was basically ate me up. It was probably a 95-5, ratio of offense. But, he's chopping, he's punching. And as he's doing it, I know when you watch it, it's like, this is kind of boring. This is kind of like expected. There's not much here. Stevie's not fighting back. You have to think, besides the 12 different variations or maybe more that we went through, I'm not getting eaten up because I'm frozen. I'm not getting eaten up because I'm nervous. I'm getting eaten up because his stuff is so good and I want to sell. And I didn't see an opening within the time we were allotted to start fighting back and try to shut him down and give it back to him. Do you see what I mean? I kind of took Occam's razor and just the easiest way, took my spots the way they were set up, sold, and also the fact that my hometown's booing me and cheering Ric Flair, just go with it. Because if I thought after the fact especially, but during this, if I start doing something or I hit him with a low blow or do something to shut him down temporarily, they may cheer and chant ECW. I didn't know. I didn't want to take that chance. But there was still the part of me that's like, hey, you're Ric Flair. And like, you're sort of having an out-of-body experience, letting yourself be beat up. You're watching my spirit. I was astroplaning out of my body, and I was watching Ric Flair beat me up, going, "This is so cool."
Here's a question though. So, I mean, he's the babyface. He's also the legend and the veteran here. But you're the heel. Shouldn't you be calling some stuff at the very least?
Well, there wasn't enough to call anyway. Anything I called for the finish was already kind of predetermined in that, okay, I'll grab you in a headlock. Either you're going to drop me across your leg or you're going to belly to back me and hit me with the figure four. He was the one that said, and I was like, oh, really? He was like, yeah, when you do that, just reverse the whip and hit me with a backdrop. Which, God, if you're in the ring with Ric Flair and taking that backdrop, you know what I mean? But I did ask him, I was like, well, I never gave it to you or anything. How do you post or whatever? He goes, just give me this shoulder. I think it was my right shoulder. And I'm going to boost up. So make sure you're really tight. And that's important for anybody. People take backdrops, hip tosses, power sling. There's different ways to take it and give it. And this might seem so granular, but somebody can get hurt if you don't ask these questions previous. So yeah, that was it. Now, of course, the next thing was, if Chris can B-roll this in selfishly, as me being a mark, what do you think I'm going to do to Ric Flair if I have the opportunity to at least do it once?
Chop him.
Chop him. And and I chopped him, and guess what I said to him after I chopped him? Sorry. Not the Sabu 1-2, sorry, but sorry. He giggled because he must have chopped me 40 times before that. It was really cool.
Do they hurt the chops from Ric Flair? Because some people I've heard really complain about chops in general or Ric Flair's chops specifically. Do Ric Flair's chops particularly hurt, or are they easy, or what?
Ric Flair could have threw me off the FU Center roof that night, and I would have probably walked away strictly on adrenaline. Do they hurt? Of course they do. All chops hurt. But I have to say this, like, he's not chopping me in the throat. He's not even chopping me like that. His chop is basically, the bigger chest you have, the easier it is. See, it's just on this side of the chest. And of course, I mean, if it was big social media or anything like that, I would have probably given myself a talking to in 2026, because I would have posted my red chest all welted up and say I had like a red badge of courage.
We were also mentioning Ric Flair's punches, and he's either got some of the best punches or some of the worst punches, and it can happen in the same match.
Yeah.
Why is that? Is it because the match we were watching on the Patreon, which we encourage you all, of course, to sign up for, to see what we're talking about, but he's throwing some great punches at Hulk Hogan, and this is in 2002, when he stood up, and then he's got the headlock on, and he's doing the and he's missing his nose by like 8 inches on every single one. But Ric Flair's very weird phrase, I guess, but hit and miss with his punches. But Is that like an age thing with him? Was he better in the NWA days for you, or what do you think?
No, I would say that particular version of a punch is the hardest to pull off without stiffing somebody. The headlock punch, where you're kind of, unless you're blocking the ref and the camera, you hit it and they bomb. The camera was too good that night for the Hogan Flair thing. But if you notice when he had me on the outside, if you could be off this in, Chris, and he's hitting me on top of the head as I'm up against the fans, which, by the way, the version of that ended up going through the 12 versions. Those punches look great because he was blocked out over his shoulder or underneath his arm, and you could see, and plus it's obviously at the top of my head, there was no real contact, but he can throw a little bit of a live round, a rubber mallet there. But I think it's the style of punch, because here's the best Ric Flair punch ever. And he did it to me, and it looked like it broke my nose. He can punch you dead on right here, and it's just, you could swear. I saw it with Sting. I've seen it with Luger, Dusty. He can throw a punch and tap your nose without hurting you. That's probably the hardest punch to throw without hurting somebody. So I give him a little bit of grace on the headlock punches.
The suplex, the vertical suplex and the reversal of it, you were particularly impressed by. It's just a basic reversal, but something I don't think that many people do.
Yeah, Rick widened his base and squatted down. He didn't do that, even though the block is like you bring the right leg inside to the back of the left knee of the person trying to suplex you, because I was doing that soup. At least I got that in. But he squatted down. And then it ended up him blocking, doing some grab the side headlock. He starts forearming me, I believe, and then goes into the belly to back. Then I asked him, I go, hey, please, if you get it anywhere in there, the knee drop or that elbow. And he goes, you like the elbow? And I go, I think your elbow is just like, because you go across the throat and it just looks like you're crushing somebody. So he kind of fulfilled my 80s love song style request. And he was going across the ropes. I go, here it comes. And he dropped the elbow on me, and I started doing the Vince McMahon most hated sell with the throat. When I went back to go after the Mike
Knox. Oh, he did to you?
No, he did that after the Mike Knox match or the Kevin Thorne match. Then he told me, you know what I feel like doing right now? I go, what's that, Vince? I feel like picking up a shotgun and blowing your effing head off. I said, so did you like the match?
Did you like the Ric Flair match?
Loved it.
I mean,
I can't
I was
complain.
going to say, I know you wanted to go longer and whatnot, but...
Well, the longer... I didn't care about the length of the match. My dream, my pie-in-the-sky dream is what? And even if it's 3 weeks going into a pay-per-view, an angle, a storyline with Flair doing something it wasn't to be... to me, I wasn't saying, let's just get through this week. I was saying, please let us do it again next week. And you just can't, obviously I knew I could do more. I knew from the promo backstage that hopefully somebody would see that and go, well, at least this guy, we can feed this guy to Ric Flair for a few weeks and give him a little bit of a storyline, elevate Stevie a little bit, and then he can put other baby faces over. That's all I was hoping for. And then maybe Rick says, I really enjoyed working this kid. I can do something with him. That's how I built Shane Douglas. Go back to the ECW. I talk about it from time to time. Shane Douglas wrestled me. He requested me at the time because I could bump and sell, and anybody could do anything to me. Grabbed the microphone and said, hey, you're going to be a future star. Not tonight, but one day you're going to be a future star. And what happened after that was people wanted to work me. Shane was saying, I would like to do something with you, but obviously I wasn't ready for that. And years later, I started working Shane for the TV title. So I had experience with that, and I was hoping that performance would at least let Rick or somebody on his level say, I want to do something with that kid.
How light is Ric Flair on a scale of whoever it is to Heidenreich?
Brad Armstrong level. Brad Armstrong level. The chops are there. That would probably be the only thing I would put him beneath Brad, because the chops sting. They don't hurt, they sting. Brad didn't throw chops. That's why I talk about Brad Armstrong and say how that guy never got pushed and nobody ever wanted to work him in main events and stuff. That's a night off. So I put him right up there as far as professionalism in the ring, being light, protecting your opponent. He and Brad Armstrong are probably, they got to be the two top guys I've ever been in the ring with. And I've only wrestled each once, but I still knew right off the bat.
And just to kind of finish it off, you get back to the curtain. Is it just a thank you, sir kind of thing, handshake, and you move on?
Well, Rick asked me how I was doing. Like, are you okay? Anything? I don't know. Everything was great, Rick. Thank you so much. No, thank you, sir. Thank you. And I was like, selfishly, I would love to do that again about 4 million times. And he just laughed. And Rick's going to obviously be super gracious if you're complimenting him and you're doing that kind of stuff. It's been obviously with years past and decades. I noticed a nice episode. You can get two different versions of Ric Flair depending upon how you approach him and what you say to him. But no, back then he was completely fine. He thanked me the week after. That's usually etiquette too. Next time I saw Rick, he thanked me again and I thanked him. So he was very, very gracious, but in a way, who wouldn't be with somebody being super respectful, putting them over and also trying to make them look like $1 million?
Absolutely. Well, we're going to go to, I guess, a potential last match, which it's mostly been shut down now, but there's still theories out there that Ric Flair might try and wrestle one more time. So during an interview, this is going about a year ago, January 2025, the then 75-year-old Ric Flair said he no longer, I'm getting to the match, he no longer gives advice to young wrestlers because they'd rather listen to inexperienced people who kiss their ass. Quote, I don't give it anymore because they'd rather read the internet. They don't listen to me. They ask me something, then they walk over and ask someone who knows nothing about it. I used to respect it when they asked me, but if I give an opinion, I've got to rethink if they're going to take it to heart. And then Flair went on to praise Tony Khan. Oh, yeah.
Can I stop you right there? I'm sorry.
Please.
This is something I've spoken about before, and I made that mistake before, and a lot of young wrestlers make it. Be very careful. You need to find a mentor. In other words, you ask Ric Flair a question about your match. You stick to asking Ric Flair questions about your match every week if he's there. When you do that, remember I said, go up to a veteran, ask him something, or if I tell a younger wrestler something, then they go to 3 other people. It's like, why did you even bother asking me in the first place if you didn't think my viewpoint and my experience was good enough? It's a way to get, it's almost in a way, I wouldn't say fully legitimate, but it is a semi-legitimate way to get heat in the locker room. You shouldn't go around because you're obviously watering down others' opinions. And when a veteran takes even 2 minutes to give you knowledge, which back then was hard to do because they all kept it close to their chest. When they wanted to give it to you, it was the biggest gift in the world. So I don't blame him for saying that.
So Flair goes on to praise AEW president Tony Khan, who I believe he's still signed with AEW at this point. And he also said that Tony Khan wouldn't let him wrestle in AEW because once, quote, Tony found out that I was on blood thinners, he wouldn't let me in the ring, which I think is good, good reason if nothing else. So just a year ago, it seemed that he was claiming the reason he wasn't attempting to wrestle again was because he was on blood thinners. And I believe he also said that he still had one more match in him. This was just 1 year ago. In mid-February 2026, so a week before we're recording now, Flair was asked during a virtual signing, or maybe 2 weeks, if there was another match on the horizon, and the Nature Boy claimed that he had been offered a match against Ricky Morton. Flair said that he was thinking about it before talks fell apart due to financial reasons. We'll get to Ricky Morton's response in a minute, but I mean, we saw the Ric Flair match. We saw it recently, in fact, for the Patreon, if you want to watch that watch along, didn't we? We did.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Good. And it's kind of it's a horror show because one, it's just a really bad match when Ric Flair's in, but two, we know he survived it and we kept thinking he was going to die. And it just... Is there any call for another Ric Flair match?
I don't believe so. And I think he's starting to get that idea about that. And he was on blood thinners and he got color in that match.
Well, that was in 2022. I don't know if he was on blood thinners then, but that's why he wasn't. But yeah, he probably was. I mean, he must have been on so much medication after that prolonged hospital stay.
Yeah, he almost died. I mean, he legitimately almost died. It's a miracle he's alive, much less wrestling, virtual signings, all that stuff, or in-person signings. I'll give you my selfish pie in the sky theory once again, since we're kind of in the clouds talking about the match I had with him there. You know, right now I can hardly walk with my back or any of that stuff. I would come out of retirement and wrestle Ric Flair in his last match, especially since it's more of a current thing, especially with the clips we talk about and everything. It could be not nostalgia, but to shut this young guy up type thing.
The like 20-minute time limit. That might just be for you two to get in the ring.
How dare you? How dare you?
All Stevie's been doing is, I say all, but you have been mentioning that you are suffering a lot with your back at the moment, and Ric Flair has every single ailment, it seems. Although he has claimed that he's not in pain.
So you're saying it's going to be what, like a Huckster Nacho Man match from WrestleMania kickoff show?
Yes. Yeah, I think there could be no survivors.
Here's the funny thing. I've seen Ric Flair train for that last match and even train afterwards. He would probably still blow me up. I've seen him on the rower. That's probably part of my back pain. It's sympathetic, just watching his videos on the rowing machine.
He was posting like, what was it, 300-pound deadlifts or
No,
so?
5. I thought
No, he wasn't 5.
Dude, he was up there one time before the last match. It was more than 3.
No, I'm talking in the last year, he was still doing 3 or claiming 350, whatever it was. And it like had the worst form in the entire world. But he was still getting those weights up there. And he's 75 and several heart attacks and everything else. Drop foot.
Wait a minute. Do you think that Ric Flair, Triple H, and Shawn Michaels have a voodoo doll on me? And they're just sticking the lower back? Or when Ric Flair deadlifts, I'm the one that feels. What kind of witchcraft is this?
Yeah, he does horrible form and you suffer for it, I think. But yeah, he's still on like the
You do a
elliptical.
deadlift and you hurt your back. You guys can be a team.
He's still on the Stairmaster and the elliptical and stuff like that. He's a freak of nature. That being said, you don't think this... I may have asked this Dutch recently, and he just said out of complete morbid curiosity, he thinks there would still be interest in a Ric Flair match. What do you call it? The heart jump, the defibrillator on standby kind of thing.
It's like watching that old Faces of Death thing from way back in the day.
What's that?
There used to be this like TV, or back in the day, VHSs that went around of real people dying. And it was like one of the best selling. Don't go look it up. It's called Faces of Death, so you can imagine.
Right, so it's like video nasty kind of thing.
Yeah, like an alligator eating a dude in half and all that stuff.
Jesus. No, I'm good.
Well, this is kind of, what we're talking about here is the morbid curiosity factor.
Yeah, could they sell out an arena, though, with that?
Depends on where it is. Do you think they could sell out like a Charlotte, North Carolina arena?
I don't know. I'm not sure. After that last one, I'm just not sure there's any.
How about Dutch, myself, and Rick in a three-way dance where the match never ends because nobody can get in the ring?
Well, I told Dutch once that, and I said instead of a last man standing, you should have a first man standing. You both start on your back and see how 20-minute time limit so you can get up.
The winner gets physical therapy for a year.
Let me go back to it. So Ricky Morton responded to the report and said, as cool and exciting as it sounds, I'm going to have to pass on the idea of one more match with Ric Flair. Rick already had his last match, and it was an honor to be part of that show. Some moments don't need a sequel. They need to be respected, remembered, and celebrated forever. So, hey, in my mind, he never had any matches after Shawn Michaels.
No, that was about the high point, wasn't it? That was really the high point. You have to keep reading it, though, because people are like, oh, well, Ricky just completely refused.
Yeah, well, if we were to do it, it would be on my terms. It would either be in a GCW or NWA wrestling ring. Okay.
That's quite the 180, isn't it?
Somewhat. Charlotte Flair also, on social media, absolutely said that she would not let that happen. She would not let Rick wrestle anymore. And then Rick, where have I put it? It's somewhere. Oh, here we go. Ric Flair on February 6th then tweeted the following: first, let me clear something up. I will never wrestle again. So in 1 year, he has done a total 180, and he is still being offered matches, apparently. But, I mean, you say you still get the itch, just occasionally, that you think, oh, I could. What gives you the itch more than anything? Like a really great match, or someone who does a really terrible match, and you think, well, I could still do better than that.
Well, I'm going to tell you the truth of every wrestler, at least the one that I believe to be true. When you have stress, when you have things going on in your life or things that frustrate you or anything, you can work out. We work out. I'm Flair. You can see his cardio much better than mine. I do cardio. I lift. And now maybe even getting a punching bag or focus pads or whatever. But wrestling used to be a very much a physical outlet for me, you know, that can get out all the frustration and the stress, and it works sense. Basically, like I said, if you have a camera and you're on TV, you can literally try to create or commit vehicular homicide on somebody, and you won't go to jail. So there's a weird element of simulated violence where you're getting the frustration and the stress out without hurting anybody, but it just feels good to get that energy out. And that's why a lot of like former fighters, UFC people, even football players miss it because it was always some kind of physical outlet. Now that's a double-edged sword because the physical outlet breaks your body down and hurts you. And I'm starting to realize my mortality in a lot of different ways over the past few years, especially. It's not so much an ego thing or the pop of the crowd or anything. And I know it might be that way for Rick and other people. For me, it's just that like Brett used to say, when I left the ring that night for my match, or even the Warrior, my tank was empty. I literally gave everything I could. It was such a physical exertion for this wrestling match. And you almost reset yourself physically, mentally, and emotionally. Like, I got it out of my system. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's never the adulation from me or any of the other stuff, because who's even cheer me in my hometown. I mean, but it's more so, it's like a really, really intensified version of like your best workout you ever had, where you're like relaxed for the rest of the day.
Don't you get more G'd up and adrenaline flowing so you can't sleep?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's why I always drove straight to the next town, because I'm not going back to the hotel to sleep. Now 54, and especially Flair's age, getting our adrenaline up too much is not the best thing in the world.
Yeah, didn't he have a pacemaker?
He did, but he also had 2 heart attacks in the last match, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Okay, then, so I think I've asked everything except for, do you want to see another Ric Flair match? And if it had to be against someone, who would it be?
Well, the first question would be no. That would be the answer to that. Who would it be? God, I can't think of anybody better that can still go and work around Rick and maybe limitations he has than Ricky Morton. Ricky Morton's a unicorn. He was doing Canadian Destroyers like 2 years ago, right? In his 60s. So Ricky would be the one, and the guy, it has to be somebody that's so comfortable with Rick and knows Rick, and Rick especially is comfortable with him. That's why I believe Ricky Morton was the name that came up. And that was one of the most underrated feuds in the NWA. Remember they had the little teeny bopper bra and they threw it and they rubbed his face to mess up his pretty face, rubbed it and burned him. That was one of them. I thought Ricky was going to go over. Ricky was so over as a sympathetic babyface in that time.
Well, he probably was. And then they were going to get rid of Robert because they were going to split up the tag team and fire Robert Gibson. And Ricky would have rather have been a tag team and saved his friend's job than be world champion. So that's why he ended up probably never being world champion.
Well, guess what? I have an even higher opinion of Ricky Morton because I didn't know that. That's awesome.
He's 70 this year, is Ricky Morton as well.
Wow. And still working. I saw something on YouTube where he was going to a show like, 2-3 months ago.
So we're going to move on now, and we're going to do a segment we've not done in quite a few months, and that is Who Was Better? And we're going to be doing Ric Flair versus Hulk Hogan. The way this works is we have 10 different categories to sort of at best cover all the facets of what makes a great pro wrestler. So 10 different categories, ranking or scoring, I should say, out of 10 for a total of 100 points. And first off, we're going to go Ric Flair first and Hulk Hogan, the airport test.
Okay, starting with Rick, you would think that Hulk Hogan runs away with the airport test by a landslide victory, but it's not true. Although Hogan, obviously, well over 6 foot, nearing 7 foot, 320 pounds in his heyday, even later on, he's still literally a larger-than-life character, a big dude. Flair, more average size, between 6 foot, 6'2", something like that, but he's still a big, bulky guy. The thing that made Flair stick out, multiple things, was obviously the platinum blonde hair, the sunglasses, and of course, the way he dressed. You looked at Flair just like you looked at Hogan for different reasons and said, that guy doesn't have a regular job. That guy does something. He's something in the media, something on TV. And of course, you hear woo, not like me and Brett. Woo! But the actual woo, woo! You know, it's Ric Flair. So this is pretty easy. 10 for both. 10 for Flair, 10 for Hogan.
This is an interesting one. Athleticism.
That's always something in pro wrestling, especially two guys that don't have, although Flair has an amateur wrestling background, it's easier to kind of score somebody that has more of a legitimate, say, MMA background, even the volleyball players and gymnastic people now in the NIL program.
It doesn't even matter, really. I mean, it's kind of like the thing that matters the least in all these categories, but I like throwing it in there.
Well, what I would say is that Hulk Hogan is surprisingly athletic based on the Japan work that he did. Almost worked too hard in a way. And Flair, obviously, I said it earlier, is a cardio machine. Stamina, conditioning, especially with the lifestyle and to be able to pull off continuous 1-hour draws in different territories. So, but we got to knock off athleticism isn't the most important part of wrestling. I'm proof of that. I would have to just kindly give them both even scores again, and I would probably give them both a 7 for that.
Next up is wrestling ability. And how would we most closely define it? We're not talking about amateur wrestling ability, of course, but I think with everything else, I think this is just pure in-ring mechanics.
Man, this is even tougher than athleticism when you think about it, because both of these guys have the 5 moves of doom. Both of these guys have very predictable patterns in their matches. But we were watching on the Patreon watch along, and you said, the match is really no different. And the people, as Pat Patterson would say, are going banana. So this is no matter what number I give it, fans don't care. That's Hulk Hogan, that's Ric Flair. But they're both, obviously Flair has the amateur background. Flair went to Vern Gagne's school up in Minnesota. Hogan famously got his leg broken in Florida with Hiro Matsuda and the Briscoes. So they're very tough guys, and they did learn from really some of the best technicians in the game. But it's not what made them over. So I would say just on wrestling ability, pro wrestling ability, there are 10, both of them. If you want to add in the wrestling, the chain wrestling, everything like that, I'd have to give Flair probably an 8 and then give Hogan a 6.
Do you ever feel
American
with
American Hogan. Japanese Hogan's the straight up 8 with Flair.
Do you ever feel that Ric Flair was kind of like whittling down what he did in the ring, whereas Hulk Hogan was kind of doing as much as he could? At least in Japan, I guess. Because, you know, in America, like from 86, 87 onwards, he would just keep it to the 5 moves of doom kind of thing, but we knew he could do more. But I always get the feeling that Ric Flair could do a lot more, and just his sense of wrestling psychology kind of boiled it down to the routine, as it were.
Well, you also have to think about the broken back from the plane crash and everything, and trying to just work within the comfort level. And you got to remember, Flair is wrestling 1-hour matches. Hogan hasn't quite done that. So when I look back at the wrestling ability, I'm giving Flair the 8, which could potentially be a 10, because I've never had one 1-hour match. This guy was doing it 7 days a week for years. So I that kind of puts him near the 9 or 10 mark. Hogan, I think, won over to Japan. This is just me as a fellow insane wrestler with a chip on his shoulder. Oh, you think I'm this big on this, and I'm a gaijin going over to Japan, and you guys think you can wrestle? And that was where doing the Tiger Mask thing into the drop toe hold and all. Dude, Hulk Hogan in Japan is a treat to watch if you've never watched it.
Next up is strikes, and this one's particularly interesting because you were saying earlier in the show and on the Patreon, he could hit you and just miss you by millimeters. He was, millimeter perfect when he wanted to be. He could miss you by feet, just about it's sometimes in the same match. Hulk Hogan really only had one punch.
Yeah, it's like the little rubber mallet to the side of your head where he'd almost punch his own hand. And he
Yeah,
did,
so I think we need to go on like technical ability as well and variation. A lot of things get sort of thrown into the strikes, I guess, in this category.
yeah, it's tough. You know why? Because Hogan's a brawler. His strikes are the 3 punches into the boot, and his punches mean a lot, which should put him up more, because when Hulk Hogan starts throwing punches, especially after a Hulk up, let's talk about the context. He stops selling your punches, and then he blocks punch. It, like I said, not even 5 moves to do him, the 3 punches that do him, but the fans go, woo, the old end, and now that's not a woo. But remember in the old NWA, when a punch would be thrown, the fans would make that guttural reaction noise? I would have to do this. Flair gets a point off for the headlock punches that he misses, but everything else is near perfect. So I give Flair a 9. And then Hogan, because you got to knock some points off because it's basically a punch or a left-handed chop once in a while. I'd have to knock him down, but those punches mean everything. So let's split the difference of adding and subtracting and call it a 7.
This next one I figure is going to be pretty easy. Ring presence / poise.
10 on both. 10. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. It doesn't even need explaining, I think. Now, this one, maybe 10s across the board. Selling.
I'm going to give Hogan the edge. I'm going to tell you why. Flair's selling in the chicken you-know-what sense is very predictable. It's very much expected. With the blonde hair, the suits, the women, I'm better than you, my shoes cost more than your house type thing, all these promos, right? Whether you're a babyface or a heel, you're kind of looking at that like a dude, which is a male-dominated audience for most decades of wrestling, and you're like, that guy I'm going to beat up. I want to beat him up, and hopefully my favorite will beat him up. Hulk Hogan, like I said, well over 6 foot, nearing 7 foot, 320 pounds. Yet when Hogan's down and almost crying, reaching out to the fans, they start stomping, they start clapping, they start trying to get him up. Have you ever seen somebody so big, and this is a point you made not too long ago, somebody that huge to invoke sympathy from the audience is a nearly impossible task. So I give Hogan a 10 for selling, and I give Flair a 7. Because it is still, you got to learn how to sell within your character, but it's an easy thing for Flair. Hogan's a unicorn that I feel sorry for a dude that big, 320 pounds of muscle. I think that he might get beat. That takes real talent.
Ric Flair's one of the noisiest sellers, which I always appreciate.
Oh, God, no. But you shut up, fat boy. But that's what I mean. Flair's an easy one. Like it was easy for me to sell and be a heel or do whatever because he's not the biggest, strongest, toughest guy out there. Hogan looked like the biggest, strongest, toughest guy in the room. And you found yourself saying, please get up. Please. I know you can do it, but not sure if he could. That's talent.
Okay. I don't know if the rest of these are all going to be 10s, but babyface work.
Hogan's a 10.
And that encompasses in-ring, it encompasses interviews, it encompasses everything.
Hogan's a 10. Flair never changed his character, which is really admirable and really a key point if you're going to be a worker. You don't want to change it too. Like Austin, babyface. He's a babyface that essentially acts like a heel, but he acted like a heel and the fans turned him. Hogan's going to be a 10. Ric Flair's strongest work, although I loved working him when he was a babyface, is not the strongest because of the presentation can be very polarizing to people, especially a male-dominated audience. I would give a 6 to Flair.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting.
He's very popular, but he's popular based on the fact that people, I love to give him, I'm kind of taking it back. I want to give him a 7. Let's change to a 7 because you have a point there. Let's do a 7.
I didn't make a point. I just really.
You made the point.
And then you convince yourself.
You made the point where you went,
No.
We don't need to exchange words. We're in the level of alien telepathic abilities now, you and I.
The converse, heel work.
This is tough. It's not tough. Flair's a 10. All right off the bat. I almost got to give Hogan a 10 because Hollywood Hogan, man. How can you? How?
Okay, right. Hollywood Hogan was great. He was very cartoony, which was also great.
That's why I want to take a point off.
Yeah, but how about you go to early Hogan? Not when he was Sterling Golden, whatever his name was.
You mean Freddie Blassie era?
Yeah, I thought he was. If you put everything together, I thought it took a long time for him to get the bad guy thing down. And some of the old stuff. If you ever saw the Tony Atlas promo, by the way, that is nuts, but that's just a thing of the time. But as I wheeze into the microphone. But he wasn't that. He was a really bog standard, boring heel in the early years, I think.
Do you think Kevin and Scott guided Hogan with the Hollywood Hogan stuff to teach him how to be that awesome heel? Because it seemed like when you talked to them in their shoot interviews that they needed to get Hogan on track with being the leader of the NWO and being that comfortable heel leader of that and take away the babyface tendencies, which really carried him to the top of wrestling.
From their interviews, I think they said that they really had to shorten his interviews a lot. Talk
those
more in
vignettes
sound
especially,
bites.
right? The vignettes they did.
Yeah. Well, that was actually I think they explained that was born out of Hulk Hogan rambling too much, which is why they ended up chopping it up. And that stylistic choice wasn't a choice made out of anything but necessity. So it just happened to be like that to save Hogan's. He was just taking so long, essentially, yeah.
But I think also what they did was some of those things from those black and white vignettes were them just screwing around. And they used it. They were trying to get him comfortable. That's the word I'm looking for with his heel persona. All right, so Flair gets a 10 for heel. I would have to say, factored in with the entire body of work of Hulk Hogan as a heel, I would do the inverse and give him a 7.
Promos.
Oh, both are 10s.
Okay, I knew you were going to say that, of course, and 10s for the next one as well, of the last of the things. But I'm going to give you a bonus 1 point for who you like more as a promo.
I'd say I like Flair's promos better because Flair could weave in and out of different storylines, different situations and everything. If you think about Hogan, you were just talking about cartoon villain and with Hollywood Hogan, everything seemed cartoon. Flair's stuff seemed more believable and a little larger than life at the same time, where Hogan was super larger than life, but you had to say, okay, this is a fun promo. But Flair would get legitimate heat when he would talk as a heel. I believe Flair had his shtick, limousine riding, all the stuff and everything. To be the man, you got to beat the man. By the way, you talk about memorable. More people say Ric Flair lines in professional sports than Hulk Hogan lines. Think about that. Mm-hmm. So I'd almost give Flair an 11 for that because he's warming up football teams, college, pro, basketball teams, and they're wooing and saying to be the man, you got to beat the man and all this stuff. So he's been in rap videos. He's kind of transcended wrestling in some ways, not as much as Hogan on a grand scale, but he's still currently relevant outside the business in a lot of ways.
And the last one, another easy one, memorable moments, their ability to create them.
Oh, both 10s. I mean, obviously you need creative, you need a booker, you need a Vince McMahon, you need Eric Bischoff, but when they're there to create a moment, they can create it.
So on that, I've tallied them up. I hope I'm right. The last time I did this on the fly, I got it completely wrong and had to submit corrections. Ric Flair gets 89 points. Woo! Hulk Hogan gets 87.
That doesn't work for me.
So Ric Flair comes out on top.
Aha. Woo. Woo.
Are you happy with that? I mean, overall, I mean, we've broken it down as scientifically as you can do with a table spreadsheet. But when you see that, do you think that Ric Flair should have won that?
Yeah, based on the other things, and when we look at it, the heel work, I would have given Hogan a 9, which would have put him 1 point ahead of Flair. But you know what?
That would have drawn him. That would have drawn him equal.
No, because you said it's 1 point, right?
No, 89, 87.
So they would have been equal. So then everybody would have said, you wasted our time. Somebody had to win. We couldn't give, what was that? Oh, he couldn't give an ECW Hammerstein finish, Batista Big Show finish. Nobody winning.
Yes. Yeah, nobody won there. Not the broad, not
Hey,
sci-fi, no one.
let's just bring it back into perspective and back into context. These are two of the greatest to ever do it, if not the two greatest to ever do it. And for that, they deserve to both be over 100 total. See, I can still politic.
And fine job you did as well. Okay, right. So why didn't Hulk Hogan versus Ric Flair work in the WWF then? Because Ric Flair goes, we're not going to be talking about, carrying the belt over, because that's his own story for another show, and probably not our show, I think. But we all know the story. He left I was going to say the NWA, but he left WCW in 1991. He had fallouts with Jim Herd, etc. He wanted to shave his head and call him Spartacus, of course, because once again, Jim Herd.
Put the earring in his ear.
He put the earring in, and all that kind of thing. Anyway, he goes to the WWF maybe like September time, something like that. And he's got the belt and then essentially becomes the real world champion. But they were doing test matches, Hogan versus Flair, around the country pretty much, like on several different loops. They probably had a good few dozen matches across the country in the build-up to WrestleMania 8. It was meant to be, originally speaking, the original main event was meant to be Hulk Hogan versus Ric Flair. And then it didn't work out that way. And I've heard various different versions of why. One I'd like to mention to you now, and then you tell me why you think it just didn't work out and they didn't want to put it on television, was that certain cities weren't drawing as well. I mean, some of them were as low as 5,000, like Daly City, Cow Palace, Fresno, etc. Then there were other places like Madison Square Garden, Oakland, Los Angeles that were drawing like 15,000. Hawaii drew 18,000, which is a bit of an anomaly, an outlier there. But Atlanta ended up being the lowest drawing, 4,500 that I could find during that loop, which is kind of incredible considering he'd just left Atlanta as well. I mean, was there just such a bias against the WWF still in Atlanta in 91?
Yeah, it sure seems like there was some kind of an unofficial boycott in Atlanta to not ever go to a WWE show, correct? WWF back at the time. I honestly don't have an answer. That's why you run these test matches on the house shows, especially if you're going to have WrestleMania at the Hoosier Dome and you're planning to make Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair the main event, correct? That was the initial plan.
So I'm trying to figure out if it ever really was the initial plan, because how would it have even ended if it was Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan? Because Rick had won the championship of the Royal Rumble, and they were still running these, I guess, warm-up or test matches on house shows after the Royal Rumble. So does Hulk Hogan then win and then retire? Or does it end up like a DQ like it did against Sid, and it's kind of an unsatisfying conclusion? Because Hulk might win by DQ and pose with Ultimate Warrior or whatever, and then move on. It's because he was retiring, and he probably at the time thought he was going to retire for good until, I don't know, Mr. Nanny didn't work out as the box office success he was hoping for. But it's interesting, this one.
Yeah, when you plug that in, is it going to be Hogan versus Flair with a DQ or something going on? Papa Shango runs in and Warrior comes back or whatever. I think we got a great WrestleMania 8 double main event. Hogan and Sid worked out, and also Savage and Flair. Man, that match is underrated for what it is, and the storyline with Elizabeth with the pictures. They really, and you might think, well, they had a rush and switching and everything. No. This is when people knew months ahead of time in the office and creative, if not a year. They really did write a year ahead back then and knew. And I would say this might be, WCW fans might not agree. Ric Flair was almost a bigger star before he even got the WWF TV with the belt, debuting with him coming in. Heenan, they brought him in perfectly with that. And of course, don't you have a video up on your Listmania or something talking about the W?
So we had technical issues, which is why now Stevie is closer to you than he otherwise once was. What? How can you have such an expensive camera that overheats every 5 minutes?
Well, because I've had it like maybe 5 years. So, I mean, I told you I planned on trading it in anyway and getting a cinema camera. So maybe the technical gods are looking down on me. I wish they waited till after the show, but I was about to turn in a trade in the B&H photo anyway. So now I just add that to the list.
I'm going to...
Very nice. I'm closed talking version with this Super 35 sensor on the FX30.
We kind of sort of forgot where we were, so I'm just going to give you some reasons. You tell me how valid or otherwise, if you cast your mind back, because you're kind of breaking into the business at this time as well. So you would have been like super obsessed with it, I guess. As reasons why Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan just didn't seem to work, or at least work enough in Vince McMahon's estimation to make it the WrestleMania main event at Indianapolis. So Ric Flair was not as well known, or not well known enough to the more casual wrestling fan at that time. And up until a couple of years prior, viewership for the WWF and WCW were kind of on par with each other, I guess, or fairly close. But fans also had their preferred wrestling and stuck with it back then. And I guess the WWF fans only really knew WWF, and Ric Flair was a complete anomaly. You didn't know who, not anomaly, but, you know, he just came from out of nowhere. Wasn't as threatening as many of Hulk Hogan's opponents over the years, and maybe they didn't treat him as somebody who would be world champion.
Those are all great points, but I bring up some other points from the past. Remember when the NWA or WCW tried to run Madison Square Garden, tried to run New York, tried to do certain things like that? Your numbers here for attendance for Madison Square Garden are kind of, you're drawing 15,000 people or more with Hogan and Flair. I think this sounds like, because all these other places, even Hawaii, 18,000 people in Hawaii is kind of, that's weird. You would think nobody would even care at that point, or it'd be more, I guess, I'm not even sure what they would like over there. It just sticks out to me, that 4,500 number there. I know you had 5,000 in Fresno and the Cow Palace, which I would think they would really want to see Flair and Hogan, because it would be more, Flair worked there a lot, right? And then WWE worked there a lot back in the day. So I thought those would draw good. But the 4,500 attendance in Atlanta just sounds like we want nothing to do with WWF, or could be a quiet boycott because maybe people were clued in to the way Flair left, which, now that I'm thinking about it, wouldn't you want to go support Flair in Atlanta to kind of stick it up WCW's butt? These are very strange test numbers for attendance.
So,
and they pretty much had the same exact match.
Yeah. Another thing is, do you think they just gave away this match way too many times in the run-up? To the point that because they didn't really do that much on TV. They did the Royal Rumble, a couple of promos, and I remember one of the interviews being on the funeral parlor with Paul Bearer. But they didn't really go fully all in on the Ric Flair Hulk Hogan thing. They kind of like soft launched it and then just pulled back almost immediately, it felt like. So it wasn't like Rick and... It was Hulk Hogan and Sid versus Rick and somebody else, wasn't it? At that Saturday night's main event. And then Sid turned on Hogan.
Yeah, I do remember that. Was it Razor Ramon?
Too early for Razor.
No, too early.
Because that was Survivor Series, I think.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I'm trying to think about that because that's very interesting. It feels like to me that Vince didn't believe Flair and Hogan would draw, and they almost kind of like had a self-fulfilling prophecy of that. It's Vince that didn't think Flair was a monster to fight Hogan. You look at Flair and you look at Sid, two opposite ends of the spectrum if you're talking about pro wrestling in a way, and Vince went with Sid. Now, like I said, it turned out, if you haven't seen the Flair Savage match from WrestleMania 8, it is really a great match. And Hogan and Sid was serviceable for two monsters. And of course, the aftermath is what people remember. But you had a double main event. So you actually did the fans a favor. People might have wanted to come out who may not have liked Hogan and Sid, but wanted to see Flair and Savage. Maybe not Flair and Savage, but Hogan and Sid. And let's not forget the most understated, or maybe the most underrated match on the card, Bret versus Piper for the Intercontinental title.
Mm-hmm.
That was a stacked card, dude.
Oh, yeah. It was The Undertaker who Ric Flair teamed with, which makes sense because it was on the funeral parlor where they were interacting, I guess.
Good point, yeah.
Do you think maybe Ric Flair's wrestling style might be a bit of a turn-off to some WWF fans, do you think?
Not quite sure, because you look at Piper. Piper had sort of a similar style, more of a brawling style, but size-wise, presentation-wise, Bret Hart, you can kind of see a little bit of Bret and Ray. You know, I don't know. Do you think it's just because maybe Vince looked and said, which is weird. They're having the same exact matches on house shows every night. How are we going to? But that's what the house shows did. The house shows were the testing ground to do the same spots on the pay-per-view or TV.
Yeah, but not usually for WrestleMania main events, though. Well, in fairness, like Shawn Michaels, Razor Ramon, they did the same thing with ladder matches, I guess. That wasn't the main event, but that was kind of a match that needed a test. Not that many, though. Like Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan were doing dozens.
Let me ask you this. Is this one of those cases where the build-up for this potential dream match through the after mags and people talking and everything, do you think they thought it could never live up to the hype that people knew throughout years?
May well have been the case. But here's something else, and I think this is very important, is that WWF business was dying in 91. And you had the steroid scandals and everything else. And I know the Sergeant Slaughter thing didn't help. And also I think in the early 90s, wrestling just wasn't the hot thing anymore. Which is such a shame. You think all these legendary names in 91 and then, you know, the first half of 92 as well. And it just, like, the business was falling off at that point.
That could be it too. It could be none of the things we just talked about, but it could be because the business was just on a downturn.
A couple more ideas. Flair just being smaller than most of Hogan's opponents. Like, he'd been fed monsters, and the only guy who was, like, markedly smaller than Hogan was Savage. And that's Savage.
Piper too. Piper
was really ballooned up, though. Like when they were feuding in 85.
But he was never considered to be a monster, and the character the character was closer to a Flair than a Hogan. But yeah, I mean, you see the way they switched the matches. So obviously Vince thought a monster like Sid was a better fit for Hogan. As a matter of fact, I mean, do you think they were actually thinking about maybe switching the title or doing something before WrestleMania to kind of make the Hogan-Sid match a title match?
Then the double main event wouldn't have worked, though.
Well, you still had a personal issue between Savage and Flair. You didn't need they didn't really need the belt for that, if you think about it. And there was a title change. Savage went over. It's a lot of weird stuff going on, isn't it?
But then, once again, if the title match was in the main event, then what happens with the belt? Is Hogan the champion going in, or is Ric Flair the champion? And then then Hogan can't really win the title because he's retiring. So I think that's somewhere down the line they said this will not work as a main event, but then they kept doing it on the house shows after the Royal Rumble. So decisions were made, but then they kept on with Flair, Hogan on the house shows, as well as Flair and Piper as well.
Well, but because back then they would promote, if you went to a house show, say the Cow Palace, you went to the Cow Palace, they announced at intermission or somewhere during the show the main event for the next time they come back and start selling the tickets. So they have an advertised main event of Hogan and Flair. I think they're just fulfilling what they advertised, which meant something back then.
Just one more thought on Ric Flair before we get to some news. Does Ric Flair deserve his matches are all the same criticism?
Well, I'd originate with Ole Anderson, and I would say a lot of wrestlers deserve that criticism, don't they? They put little forks in the road or little tweaks or little choose your own adventure. But the Brett, I mean, there's lots of things around they build and do whatever, but it all comes down to what do you remember about all these great characters, these great performers? They're 5 moves of doom, if not even less than 5 moves of doom. It's just a matter of like Brett made his stuff look incredible. Hogan made everything he did count. Flair made everything he did count. Piper literally didn't have any moves except for the sleeper, if you think about it. Super over promos.
Yeah, well, in that vein, then how do you have a different match? Or you I think these days, everyone's really focused on establishing like 20 different signature moves and then trying to counter out of those into the next signature move, into the next, just basically countering each other's signature moves. Like the more, like, let's say Kenny Omega and Okada, for example, they'll have their first match, and then their second match, they'll build on that, where they're just countering moves that you know are coming. And then the third match will be countering the counters of the counters, etc.
Well, it turned into two. Like, if people don't know what a shotgun or a waterfall finish is with a tag match, 6-man or whatever, now in singles matches, they're doing shotgun finishes like move, 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 move into that and then kick out.
Roll up for the win.
Well, Savage and Flair ended with a schoolboy with a roll up.
That's all you need. I like it that Savage afterwards absolutely refused to say that he didn't cheat. It's like, yeah, I did what I had to do. And that was it.
But that stays true to his Savage character, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't care. I mean, and probably the fans loved him even more after that. Yeah, cheat.
Let's move on. Let's go to the news then. And there's quite a few things to talk about. First off, on WWE Raw yesterday, as we record this, AJ Styles' retirement. It was the ending segment of Raw. It was kind of the beginning segment as well, because Gunther comes out and sort of interrupts it, and because AJ's not there. And he has his thing. And there was a weird bit where Adam Pearce's microphone apparently genuinely didn't work or wasn't coming, in the house. And then the main event of the show was AJ Styles doing a big long speech, etc. You did watch it, or did you watch it?
I did not watch it. Not yet.
Damn. All right.
Honestly.
Okay, then.
I know Taker came out. I didn't watch him talk. I saw Taker come out with the clip and said it's his esteemed honor to induct him into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, they did that really well, I think. But it also lends credence to me that Undertaker's actually picking these people. Because he announced Triple H, he announced Stephanie McMahon, now he's announcing AJ.
I wish I had that little clout. I really do. You said he had no clout, right?
Yeah, no, he doesn't make any decisions or anything. He would never use his influence for any untoward reason.
But I will say this, now this is kind of a thing, right? He did it for Stephanie, and now he came out on the motorcycle for AJ. It's kind of a thing now where you see him come out, you know this person might be inducted into the Hall of Fame. So I can't complain about that. They get the pop, Undertaker coming back, but then like AJ kind of knew what was coming, even though he knew what was coming. You know what I mean? But like when he shows up, rides a motorcycle down, last time you saw him, he inducted Stephanie. Super popular induction, by the way. And then the AJ one, which is actually really a super popular decision, and not waiting until next year when all this stuff it's already started to die down if you think about it, but they brought it back.
Well, I mean, with the Stephanie McMahon induction, they had to do it like last September or whenever it was at WrestlePalooza, I think, to give fans 7 months to calm down from their hysteria of, the joy that they were all feeling.
Yeah, I mean, everybody had to go out and buy Apple Watches and check their heart rate, make sure it comes down, start meditating, start doing whatever they could, because how am I going to make it to April? How am I going to make it to April with these super affordable ticket prices in Vegas being so welcoming to tourism? And now this. I mean, it's all too much for the heart to really take.
Yeah, medical alert bracelets stock went up, I'm sure. With all,
Are you tired of waiting 7 months for a Hall of Fame induction?
Well, with something VPN, you can enjoy the show.
Yourself to April.
Yeah, they're doing 7 months special all the way to the Hall of Fame.
I've never seen anybody get inducted that early. Have you?
No.
It's always like right around the Rumble or like December or January, right?
Yeah, they start January. Damn light coming through the blind now. Now I've got to lean.
Michelle McCool got a magnifying glass pointed at you.
Must be. Okay, I can sit exactly here for a minute. I need to get better blinds because the ones that I stick on my window, they've fallen off. Okay, I can go over here.
I finally look bigger than James with this Super 35, this crop sensor here. It's nice.
You're really enjoying it, aren't you?
I am.
Yeah, this works. Okay, I'm going to have to be off the edge for a minute.
That's driving me nuts already. Oh, my God, my OCD is going crazy. You're not symmetrical in the center.
There you go. That's just for you, by the way. No one else can see it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So, The Undertaker's apparently now... We're going to talk about AJ in a minute, but The Undertaker is now pretty much fully booking AAA, and now they've got a new weekly show that they broadcast on Fox in South America, and Central America. He's definitely getting more influence. I know we've talked about this before, but you know how The Undertaker's like definitely saying, oh, I never use my influence, etc. I'd never do that kind of thing. But like he's a booker. He's a booker within WWE. He's part of very much the inner sanctum of the inner circle, choosing the WWE Hall of Fame inductees. What's next for him? And I know you were saying he was going to replace Triple H, but do you think this is going to come in more increments?
Oh, I couldn't. I mean, this is the most, this should be the show. This should be Unreal, even though Unreal, everybody always talks about Unreal and I can't believe you're getting worked by them or this and that. Well, I've been in some of these production meetings. If they're playing the long game, working the boys who currently work there in 2004 and 5. Say, when we have Unreal in 21 years, we're going to, man, Stevie's going to bring it, how, with the fish hook right there. I don't know what he's going to do, but I definitely think there's obviously a future for him. He's every bit in the background as indispensable as Triple H. Do you feel that way too?
As is Michelle McCool.
I mean, not as much as Michelle, but he's up there. I saved you the trouble of saying it.
Thank you.
I'm in trouble now.
Okay, AJ Styles then. I mean, obviously, totally deserved. He's been with the company.
You're going to leave me hang out to dry with that.
All right, what do you want me to say then?
You need to get your snarky remark in and take the heat off.
Right, so, okay, Triple H is going to be, like, when they sell TKO to the Saudi Arabians, Undertaker's going to replace Triple H. Is that the running theory that we're going with?
No, I expected you to say Michelle McCool would replace Triple H.
No, Michelle McCool's buying it. I've decided now, not the Saudi.
Oh, she's buying TKO.
Yes.
And
it's called
she's part of the Saudi royal family now.
Yes, it's MME now. So all you have to do is just invert the W's, like the Miz does with his microphone cube.
Well, they're already ready to go for it with the mic flags and everything.
It's perfect. All right, AJ Styles. I mean, does anyone deserve? He's been there 10 years. He's not really wrestled much this last year. I don't know if it was purely due to injury or just slowing up, but I think he wanted to retire at WrestleMania last year. And I think due to injury, he ended up sticking a little further with it than he otherwise would have done. But essentially, I think the reason he gave is, aside from the fact that he's, nearly 50, nobody, or him specifically, doesn't want to wrestle beyond the point where, he's, embarrassing himself in the ring, which is obviously very, very far away from doing that. But he just said, like, the one thing I haven't done is just be a full-time father, so I need to do that, which is, very laudable. He's made his money.
Yeah, you think about AJ, and I don't think many people know. Hopefully they'll come out with more. If they haven't come out with a full documentary or are currently producing it, AJ literally came from nothing, from being dirt poor, almost literally dirt poor, and basically fighting his way into, becoming one of the biggest names in wrestling, one of the people that's going to be remembered, one of the innovators of a style, put TNA on the map. There would be no TNA today without what AJ Styles, a few other people, but AJ Styles was the flag bearer for TNA for the longest time. And to do that and overcome all of the outside the WWE family stink where they never push anybody who's not homegrown, and to have that spot, be WWE champion, and now be inducted in the Hall of Fame. I think his journey, definitely for anybody even outside wrestling that thinks because of their circumstances and environment, they cannot overcome it, that dude can tell you through example that yes, you can. And yeah, the AJ's most unathletic, embarrassing moment to him is still way more athletic and makes sense and makes a moment much more than anybody else.
I think it's even more impressive that he's probably like 5'8" as well. And you know how Vince McMahon feels about that,
yeah. And if you try to Styles class a 6'2" guy and he doesn't look back, you know what happens.
You were talking about Madden earlier to me. That wasn't an AJ Styles reference, was it?
No, but now it is. Yes, I was talking when we get to the Vision story, they should all be on the cover of Madden. All suffering from the Madden curse. AJ, though, I have to say this. Out of anybody out there, you can talk about durable wrestlers. I don't think when you kind of like think about the style that AJ has consistently done since day one up until 2026, you have to say he's the most durable athlete that I've seen in a long time in wrestling. If not the most durable.
we should move on because you mentioned it before. The curse of the vision continues to strike. We'll talk about the curse after this, but this has got to be the what went wrong segment. Now, sometimes you're going to do the solo for now. Sometimes it's going to be in the meat of the show itself. And this time, because there's kind of follow-up news to talk about, we thought this would be in the meat of the show this week. And it's Bronson Reed's injury. Once again, WWE Raw from yesterday as we record this. And it's the most nothing move you would think looking at it initially. And it comes from, have we got it? So this is the slow-mo version of it, because we also need to look at El Grande Americano's headbutt as well prior, which is kind of just, that was complete. I don't know what happened there. It's just like completely distance was off. And then Bronson Reed managed to injure himself breaking up a pin. Stevie, what went wrong? How did any of this happen?
Thank you, James. I would say this. We've talked about injuries in the past, like Rob Van Dam with the sliding baseball kick, the baseball sliding drop kick to the outside that he's done a million times, and just that one time he broke his leg. Usually the things that are the most, like, I guess, milquetoast or whatever, they do not come out of this without injury. And then the big moves, everybody's like, that should have killed this guy. He's totally fine. With this, when I looked at it, you have basically El Grande Americano going for the headbutt. Yes, that's a what went wrong on its own. How you I mean, I would say this, he got a lot further than I ever. Dude, look at this
He's
stuff.
splashing the Slim Jim logo.
Yeah, but he very easily could have tore his Achilles. He could have been right back out. We're not saying it's Chad Gable. Nobody knows. But what I will say is he could have injured himself on this thing. And then, of course, goes to cover. Now, what you're talking about is he tried to do the breakup where you kind of hook the guy and roll like over with him. You know what I mean? You take him off, but he missed. That's not what went wrong, though. And right away, look at his arm. It's just static. And then he looks at it. What was the last injury Bronson Reed suffered? Remember, he was hurt for a while?
I don't remember. He was... did he do like a splash off the cage or something through a table and he landed awkwardly and did his little ankle?
His ankle got messed up, right? I think it was a cage match.
Yeah, he jumped off the cage and he rolled his ankle or something, yeah.
Here's the slow-mo version right here. Now, I'm going to tell you, that doesn't look like much, but that probably popped his bicep out. Remember I told the story about Kevin Thorne in the OVW Battle Royal? He got thrown out and he held onto the rope and he ended up tearing his bicep. This is definitely right here what we're looking at. Oh, you know what? I saw a little, like not right here. You figure it comes right here. Let's zoom in. See the bicep?
Yeah.
It popped. His bicep popped. You can see right around this area. It almost looks like it becomes instantly, you can see the little pop right there. Yeah. It just, you can see the tension on that bicep. Do you see it? You see it, Tony? David Crockett would say. I don't mean to make a joke out of it, but torn biceps, no joke. Now, the only thing I would say is I've torn my bicep partially, and it's just painful for like 6 months, can't really lift much, and I still worked. I just taped it up and I went, and it was just, it healed really bad, like rolled up a little bit, but hopefully he doesn't need surgery, because if he needs surgery, he's not at WrestleMania. There's no way. But that's where it happened. Right there.
So you're saying that he just grabbing onto El Grande Americano just too tightly, trying to get him to roll off, and he wasn't going with it.
No. It was nobody's fault. I think it was just he stretched out to kind of guide him, or maybe just get a hand on him to break it up. I think he was hoping I could just pull him off and kind of bear hug him and we roll through it. But he was just trying to get him off. Good Lord. He's trying to get him off of his opponent. There we go. And this ended up happening right here. It looks like he went hyperextended the arm and the bicep just popped. Now, whether it's full tear, partial tear, whether it's just some kind of like strain on the tendon and the ligament, I don't know. Do you have a diagnosis on him?
Yeah, I do somewhere. Brian Alvarez reported that Reed is currently in medical following the match. Both he and WrestleVotes report that Reed was originally planned to win the match. So he should have been in the Elimination Chamber, and they figured out in the last second. I do have more follow-up to this that I'll get to in a minute. But yeah, he was supposed to win and be in Elimination Chamber.
I'm going to say something real quick here before you go to it. The bicep could have tore because you can't see it with his knee as much, but you see the elbow up here? Watch his elbow. He kind of hyperextends his elbow right there. You see that? The little wrinkle in his elbow? That could be where the tear happened, the full tear, because as you look here, it's all kind of, it looks like almost like an instant bruise. I think that's a shadow, but you can see the taut tightness of the bicep tendon right there. And all it takes when this hyperextends, that could be where the potential tear comes in.
So, Jey Uso ends up winning the match, and he wins it really cleanly. You know, he just does his finishes, and you know in WWE and wrestling these days, you very rarely just see, someone hit their finishes and then win. So you kind of knew straight from there that something was off. But yeah, Bronson Reed was meant to win that match, and obviously an audible, I guess you would say. They go to the break, and then they come back, and Bronson Reed is nowhere to be seen. So Jey Uso and El Grande Americano get through the rest of the match, and then Jey Uso is going to Elimination Chamber. Now, Michael Cole announced during Raw that Reed had suffered a distal biceps tear, and would be out of action indefinitely. And I checked on Google. It said, with surgery, you're looking at a 6-month layoff.
So it's a bad tear. I've never heard of that type of tear, but I would assume that it's torn right off the bone.
I'm going to check that now.
Well, because it's got to be reconnected. For 6 months, it requires surgery, and you're reconnecting the bicep tendon to the bone.
It says a distal tear is an injury where the tendon connecting the biceps muscle to the elbow rips or detaches, usually caused by sudden heavy lifting or forced extension of a bent arm. It causes a pop sensation.
Yeah, he hyperextended his elbow. He hyperextended that elbow, and that was the point where it tore. Dr. Stevie, aha. And I don't mean that in any joking way about the actual situation, but you can see the exact moment when it was starting to stretch and tear, but the second that elbow hyperextended, his best thing would have been to try to not hook him and pin him over, but just club him. For everybody out there, when you're trying these fancy breakups of pins or saves, just double axe handle the guy. Don't try to roll through and because you can have like the Chad Gable thing with the headbutt. You can catch your leg, your ankle, break your ankle, tear your Achilles. Isn't it more impactful? Just come down and club somebody on the top of their back or on their head to break up a pin, because then other people come in and throw them out, or it spills outside like that. So here's my question, because it didn't look like there was a whole lot of time to throw the X up and do all this stuff. How did they determine that Bronson Reed's not winning, so we got to put Jey Uso over?
Because he's the bigger of the two stars, I guess. So they just went, him. I think that's it. Because they did go to commercials, so they had a few minutes to think of it. Just one more thing as well. One more thing as well. Can you go back to the first video, not the slow-mo video? Because after Bronson Reed starts holding his arm, and you can tell that something's off, El Grande Americano does a really impressive German suplex on him as well, that I think is worth watching and analysing, just for the absolute pure strength of the guy, because this is a stalling affair as well. Here we go.
Yeah, here we go. I can see what El Grande Americano too, by the way. Watch his head. He's got to shift because the guy's so heavy. You see how he throws him over to the left? Usually he goes back, but he's like, no, he's going to break my... Yeah, but look at his... Oh, my God. Look at it. That's the only reason I would say you got to do neck bridges, because he didn't tuck his chin at all. He still landed on his head, on his face. It is very impressive. I'm not saying it's Chad Gable, but when Chad Gable used to do the chaos theory, out of corner, roll, and then that big German like that, it was pretty awesome. That's what it was called, the chaos theory. It's German, right?
It's just
Ugh.
it's just ridiculous, because Bronson Reed's now had a load of bad luck, and it just seems that the Vision are the most cursed group of all time. It really does.
It's like they're a bunch of Stevie Richards. Like, I thought I was injury prone, and that's what I'm saying. Like, now I guess I got to make the case in politics, because in the current state, with everybody constantly getting injured, I should be the new leader of the Vision. I have the resume. I know. Just ask Heidenreich, Bill Goldberg, and everybody else about that. Even myself, I've injured myself. I've never needed help.
We've got to go through all of these. I know we've covered a lot of this throughout the show, but it kind of almost beggars belief. So I was thinking that, we said time and again that the Vision Group, all iterations haven't been that great, because they just always seem like just a bunch of guys shoved together, which obviously is what they are. But there always seems to be like a lack of cohesion or no real connection between them, just like basically just people that Paul Heyman likes. But now it turns out that
like Seth always had people like that, like AOP and everybody else.
Yeah.
Buddy Matthews, just a bunch of dudes. They're like NPCs, aren't they?
Yeah, so it's a bunch of dudes, but now main eventing Raw. Well, some of them are sometimes. Aside from Bron Breakker, I like to think. But I never thought that he needed Paul Heyman in the first place.
Nope. I don't think Bronson Reed even needs Paul Heyman. The people want to see the continuous tsunamis on. And after what he did to Seth Rollins, it's like, do you see what I mean? Like, oh, you splashed me 19 times and tried to like, just kill me. But yeah, hey, come join the group.
Yeah. There's one thing they've got in common is that nearly all of them have been injured seriously while being part of the Vision, or just before. So in Austin Theory's case, he was not injured. We don't think he was injured on screen. His last match was with an El Grande Americano, and he was gone for like 5 months, but he was still like bickering with Grayson Waller at this point, and then he just disappeared until near the end of the year. And I'm not even sure we know what the injury is or how it happened. It might have happened away from the ring, but he was gone for 5 months, and then he turned up as the Black Scorpion at Survivor Series, doing Seth Rollins moves, of course. So he was almost like a pre-Vision injury going into it. And then we had Seth Rollins. He does the fake knee injury that ends up being a real shoulder injury a couple of weeks later.
Yeah, you about covered it. I said it to you before we even started the show, and we hopefully will have that thumbnail created. All these guys deserve to be on the cover of Madden. The Madden curse is in the Vision. It's definitely something that it's unfortunate, because once this kind of happens, and they're favored. If they weren't favored politically and creatively, they wouldn't be on TV. One guy gets hurt, you all got to go off TV. That's the way usually if you're in a tag team or in a group or whatever, you try to do whatever. But if the leader gets hurt right off the bat and he's out for weeks and months, don't they usually disband the group or have them do their own thing and then maybe try to get them back together?
Yeah, for the most part, whether they're singles or not, unless they're like really figured in like Punk. And usually, if you keep them on TV, it does them a favor, because you get to work on your character stuff.
Yeah, I figured Punk, and people weren't familiar. Like years and years back, Punk was hurt, and he did commentary for however many weeks. That was when Triple H put him on commentary, and he asked, "Can I wear your suit jacket?" And he wore the suit jacket for the rest of the episode. That's what we talked about before. Seth Rollins being hurt, going to the NFL honors, going to the Super Bowl, that has nothing to do to draw money for WWE. You should be doing stuff on TV to some extent, even if he is commentating, even if somehow, guess what? He usurps Pierce and becomes an evil GM of Raw. Now he's got all the power and he's abusing it. There's all different ways to go.
But what they did instead was Seth, he did the coast-to-coast headbutt, and for some reason he did that. And then he landed on his arm, popped his shoulder out, injured it quite significantly, where he's been out since October, maybe. And we still don't know if he's going to be appearing at WrestleMania. And then, yeah, he gets attacked immediately and thrown out the Vision. So he can't be a mouthpiece for them, and he can't really be on TV every week, because he'd just be attacked every week by 4 members of the Vision. So it doesn't really make any sense there. Now, after that, Bron Breakker becomes the focal point of the group. And then a couple of months later, he ends up with a hernia that we still don't know how he got a hernia. And we also don't know if the hernia was exacerbated through wrestling. We don't know, because he was rumored to have won the Royal Rumble. And from there, he ends up being eliminated very, very quickly, immediately, at number 2. And then he's just gone, because apparently he needed emergency hernia surgery, which could see him out for 8 weeks, or it could see him out for 6 months. So he's the next person injured, meaning that it's now Logan Paul who is the focal point of the Vision for now, till he gets injured.
Well, you think about that too. Logan Paul tore his ACL or blew his ACL out over in Saudi Arabia against Roman Reigns, correct?
Hmm?
And he was out. Yeah, way, way back.
Wow, I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, he tore his ACL. I remember he had some vlog where had him in the wheelchair and he was coming back to the States to get surgery. If you can double check that, I think it was the Saudi Arabia match with Roman Reigns or one of those Saudi Arabia matches. So he could be, and he's been working more and more, and he always takes chances, right? I like that moonsault to the table that he did not too long ago. That could have broke his ribs. That could have blew his knee out. He's one big move away from getting injured as well.
Yeah, he tore his ACL and MCL during Crown Jewel 3 years ago. Well remembered there. If there is a silver lining to all this, it has allowed Logan Paul to have more promo time, and because he's now quote unquote full time, and he is good on the microphone. He's not amazing, but he will improve more quickly.
The brother quota needs to be lowered. You know what I mean? He's going to be using Sabida and gimmick pretty soon.
Oh,
Fernand Durham.
Someone asked what Zabadar means.
It's like gimmick. It's a ubiquitous term, and it's a uniform. If I can't think of something, the CT creeps up. What's this? I thank God I don't talk like this anymore outside of just now. What's that gimmick over there? He's got this gimmick. Oh, he's got the gimmick in his hand. Oh, he's going to drink out of the gimmick. Sabida. Sabida sometimes is just, I know there's people out there throughout my life and career where you're like, hey man, you're not making any sense. What are you saying? What are you saying? They go, Sabida. And then they punch and slap their bicep and walk away. Like I did to Ric Flair. But they don't turn around and go, oh my God, you took a bump.
Speaking of biceps, then Bronson Reed ends up injured from Raw this past Monday. So that is...
Pretty soon they're going to be putting tights on Paul. You got to get out there, pal.
Look, right, aren't they having enough issues keeping viewers?
How about that'd be morbid curiosity, wouldn't it?
Maybe a 1 week curiosity, but once you've seen it and thrown up, then,
Well, here's the other thing. Since this is one of your most popular topics to cover on the James Romero channel, are they stuck between a rock and a hard place right now with Logan Paul? Mm-hmm. Logan Paul could be inserted into something. He could have won the Royal Rumble. If these injuries happened before, he could have been an alternate, or it could have been something if they wanted to heel instead of Roman Reigns. Just fantasy book and just saying he's stepping up. But look at all the stuff that's happening with the scams and the scandals and the lawsuit with CoffeeZilla and everything. Do they want to put him that much in the spotlight? Because his performances are great. But all those outside things, is that hurting or is that causing them to pause? Or they don't care?
Do you think he's lost star power since he's been on television every week? And now he's just with the Vision?
Yes. He's no longer that special attraction. I think he would be a bigger star if it was Logan Paul showing up, starting trouble all by himself. He's fat. He's kind of bleed. Even with everybody injured, he still is kind of glossed over as the group. Logan Paul's not standing out as an individual enough, especially as a heel. Do you think that's by design because of the outside stuff?
That's kind of what I was getting at. Is maybe it is. Maybe they just... But it's TKO. They don't care. Do you think they care?
No, I'm pretty sure they don't.
They're all a bunch of Logan Pauls, in my mind.
They would look at Logan Paul with all the other stuff and say, more people want to show up. More people tune in to see him want to see him get beat up because they hate him.
So now the Vision is now Logan Paul and Austin Theory. That's the group now. Is it?
The two guys that weren't the establishing members to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah, and Austin Theory is very much Austin Powers' turn. Would be way better. Like if he managed them, but Austin Theory is absolutely the most junior member with like no heat on him. And then there's Logan Paul, who shouldn't really been in the group, and then there was Bron Breakker, who didn't need to be in the group, and then there was Seth Rollins, who probably should have never had a group with him at that point, or Paul Heyman with him, because I know it was the big turn at WrestleMania last year, but it's not the same. It doesn't work if it's with Roman Reigns or CM Punk. It makes sense with those two, not with Seth, I don't think.
Well, here's the other thing. Like, what about Brock? He's with Brock now, so is
Brock in the Vision? Has he ever officially been in the Vision? Was Becky Lynch ever in the Vision?
Oh my God. I know she's in Starfleet Academy. I saw some of the clips.
With her in it, or with Klingon?
No, with her in it on the bridge of whatever that shopping mall thing looked like on the bridge of whatever the name of the ship is. I purposely forgot. Star Trek ended with Enterprise, as far as I'm concerned.
That's the spirit. Scott Bakula, that one, wasn't it?
Oh, it's awesome. Yeah. Captain Archer.
I remember the theme song being pretty bad for that. It's almost like the theme song's like Dawson's Creek or something.
Russell Watson and Diane Warren or something like that. Yeah, Faith of the Heart. I liked it.
So I'm
a love song guy, though. Sorry, everybody.
Just to wrap this up then, would more house shows cure this or something? Like, why is like nobody limber? Why is everyone tearing stuff really badly all the time, it seems? WWE's gone through a spate of big injuries, and AEW had just gone through a massive spate of big injuries as well. Is it? Because that's not a risk. The Bronson Reed thing is not a risk. Is that just too few reps?
No, I don't even know. There was a big thing about, obviously it was on the news and everything, about the schedule for pro wrestlers, all the wrestlers that died within a 2-year period. They're working them literally to death. It's way too much, abusing alcohol, painkillers, other drugs. And you know, obviously the other stuff with people having enlarged hearts and dying way too young. I'd say this is the more favorable option, but also I think guardrails need to be put on. Bronson Reed's an anomaly off of what I'm saying right now. There needs to be guardrails to say, let's not try to have a WrestleMania match every single week, every single time. False finishes. Let's think about it too. 20-minute matches every single week. 4 matches on the PLE. You're going to wear the talent down. Then you introduce a real cage weeks before WrestleMania. You don't think there's going to be injuries in that match? There sure will be.
Right, let's move on then. We've got to get to TKO and more TKO Greed, because you mentioned the 4 PLEs, 4 matches on the PLE, so how can we not bring that up? So WWE, and yeah, I know I did a video on this as well, but WWE has been running more discounts for tickets for WWE shows, which surely says one of two things or both. The shows aren't exciting enough to get fans to buy enough tickets, and or the tickets are too expensive. And that Raw from yesterday, as we record this, started off hot. It was an exciting start to the show. Then Bronson Reed gets injured, kills off the momentum of the entire show, and there's not much of any reaction whatsoever. I mean, that also being, there were 3 matches across 2 hours and loads of backstage promos.
Wait a minute,
they're doing the
3?
No, there were 4 matches, I should say.
Okay, the perfect mix.
Yeah, so over like 2 hours, 20 minutes, or whatever it was. But there are so many backstage promos where they're doing the AEW thing of where they're just filming it wherever they can, and it doesn't look professional, which is really annoying. But also, just the pacing's all wrong, and they killed the audience for the rest of the night until AJ Styles came out. And then, so WrestleMania, as we also know, less tickets being sold, although it needs to be said $66 million generated last year, so it's an all-time record, so they'll still make tons of money. So TKO jacked up the price of the tickets again, even more of a rip-off than it was last year, quite frankly, and some reasons tickets more of a rip-off, of course. Las Vegas is more of a rip-off than last year. it isn't the territory days anymore. You can't just keep running the same city over and over again, even if it's a tourist city. There's little indication of what the WrestleMania card is going to be, even now. And now Bronson Reed's not in, we've got even less idea what the card's going to look like. And there's very little change from last year, and it's in the same venue. So you've kind of already seen it for the most part. So it's a lot of different reasons. So WrestleMania did or Allegiant Stadium posted a 25% off deal, I think maybe around Valentine's weekend or like a long weekend or something with a code. And then they shut it down early. And I'm assuming this is a fact that no one was buying the tickets with 25% off. So I guess they just shut it down early because, well,
wow,
why bother?
Like, because you looked at the seating chart even for Elimination Chamber, and you're like, my God, it's like, at the time you were looking at it, it was like 35% of the floor seats are still like empty for Elimination Chamber, which is how many weeks away? Well, it's this Saturday.
Which means, yes, 4 days as we record this, yeah.
Wow. How do you go back? It's kind of like other prices of other things. Once they get raised, how do you bring them back down without, I don't know, feeling like you gave up or you made a mistake? These corporations can never make a mistake and revert back to the previous prices.
But here's the issue with it, is that you can always just drop the prices down a little bit, but you have to open with those prices because, and people are getting wind of this. I make videos on it quite often these days because it's a rich vein and there's always something else to talk about. Other people do videos on this as well. Why would you buy a ticket to a Raw or SmackDown or whatever it is 3 months in advance or 4 or 5 months in advance, whenever they announce it, when you know, because they're doing this for Raws, they're doing it more for SmackDown, they're doing it for WrestleMania, you know they're going to discount those tickets. So if you buy tickets straight away, you're a sucker because they are discounting these tickets constantly. So all that does is make the people, the early bird buyers, feel like idiots for spending full price when there's going to be a discount later on. And it also makes people wait until the last minute to buy tickets in the first place. So that's why you need to price it more reasonably so there's a steady buy-up of tickets until the event time.
Well, I couldn't have said it better myself. That's the way you run a business. But apparently, TKO thinks of a different business model than you do. Like you said, and here's your thumbnail. It's your fault. The fans' fault for everything. And now we are going to punish you. We're not going to make it affordable. We're not going to make it to where people talk about it. It's the greatest deal in town with the greatest form of sports entertainment. We are going to now do blackouts for Elimination Chamber and WrestleMania. And then they're gonna show up. I'm sorry, I'm gonna finish with this point. Well, this more of a question for everybody to comment on, and you, if you could give me your opinion. Could we have empty seats or tarps at WrestleMania? And would TKO get the memo and start to change what they're doing?
I think, right, when you've got people like Bruce Pritchard who say, hey, I remember when we had 12 matches a show and it was terrible and you didn't remember anything. It's like, what a load of crap. You've just made up. Aside from the fact that pay-per-views for the most part did not have that many matches on. Some of the old WrestleManias did. But for the most part, they had like 8 or 9 or something. So what Bruce Pritchard has done has made up a scenario in his head and then argued against it using flawed logic. It's like
an argument. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's an argument that didn't exist.
Yeah, there's no strawman argument because he's wrong. We just talked about it earlier. Even with me with all the concussions and everything. Didn't I just rattle off like 3 or 4 matches from WrestleMania 8 and moments and things that happened? Didn't we talk about Bret knowing and Bret winning the title against Yokozuna at WrestleMania 10? Don't we joke about, no, Bret, it's your belt at WrestleMania 9? So the last time I checked, all of those had way more than 4 matches. But you also know what they had? They had more than 4 storylines. Mm-hmm. They had more than just this little nucleus of people that have, the main event, whatever. Everybody on the show contributed some from what's considered to be the bottom first match to the main event. I even remember the Hart Foundation opening up SummerSlam against Tully and Arn, and the way they just morphed from the opening with people eating ice cream and on the beach, and then the music just hit, and here comes people on their feet. Goosebumps. So you're telling me that I'm an idiot, nobody remembers anything, even the dumb guy that has post-concussion syndrome doesn't remember. Whatever.
Yeah.
Keep living in your bubble.
Well, it clearly is a bubble because once again they're inventing arguments and then getting them wrong. I don't get this four-match PLE thing. I don't get it.
Stupid I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm just fired up. This is the idiotic corporate thing. He might as well have said flywheel and synergy at whatever corporate speak, quiet quitting or whatever. I'm beside myself with the stupid, and now it is. You fans are wrong. This is perfect. You're the one that sees it as not good. Whatever, man.
So, yeah, to explain that, Stevie did mention blackouts. So, WrestleMania, they are blacking out, like watch parties and broadcasts in like public areas that people can gather. Because their theory is that if you can't watch it in public, therefore you'll be more happy to drop $800 minimum to go watch WrestleMania in Vegas, right? So, with Vegas, instead of $800, this is for the fence sitters, like the 10 people who'd be like, oh, should I watch it in a bar? Should I, go to the show? But for everybody else, pretty much everybody else suffers. And my opinion is going to be stopping people from going Vegas at all. So if you can't watch WrestleMania or make an evening of it, aside from going back to your hotel room, you might as well just stay home if you're really intent on watching that show. But then Elimination Chamber, they are now doing the same thing. And the reason is because a year ago at Elimination Chamber in the Rogers Centre in Toronto, I believe, they sold 37,500 tickets there or thereabouts, buoyed up by John Cena, of course, and then, they didn't know he was turning heel there, of course. They thought, we must do 38,000 or something like that this year, and they've only done less than 15,000, best we can tell. And because they are not shifting tickets still, even a few days before the show, even though Raw's happened and SmackDown will happen as well, they are now punishing the local fans in the Chicago area by doing blackouts for public displays there, might you say, as well, because, hey, well, if the fans, you're not going to buy the tickets, we're going to punish you. You're not allowed to watch this in public. You either need to stay at home on your own, or you can buy a ticket at $300 inclusive of taxes for nosebleed seats to go and see the show that apparently you don't want to see in the first place. Not our fault. We didn't put a show on that you want to buy tickets for at exorbitant rates. It's your fault, and you're going to be punished.
Oh, I thought we were going to end on that.
No, unfortunately, we've got one more thing to talk about, the Vince McMahon crash. Have you seen it? Hopefully you haven't, because I want to do a live reaction to it.
No, I haven't seen it. I haven't seen Janelle Grant's speech yet.
Oh.
I want to do a reaction.
Okay, you ready?
I'm ready. This looks very familiar. This is the Merritt Parkway, and if I ever see whatever this is, a Bentley or whatever on the road, I'm just going to pull over to those trees there and get out of the way.
Yeah, so it's like a $300,000 Bentley GT, whatever it is. I don't know. But here is Vince McMahon. It was. Who was going, apparently, at this point, over 100 miles an hour. It was like he didn't even see the car in front of him. That's the nuts thing.
That's my Bentley.
So there's no audio at this point. There will be audio quite soon when they arrest him. Or detain him, whichever way you want to work. But yeah, completely wrote off his car.
The flashers work. The hazard lights work.
Ambulance? No, I don't. All right. Why were you driving over 100 miles an hour?
It's my granddaughter's birthday. I got to get this the next exit.
Right. Did you see me trying to catch up to you behind you?
I didn't see that. I saw lights, but it didn't look normal.
All right. Yeah, I'm trying to catch up to you, and you keep taking off.
Oh, no. I'm not trying to outrun you.
I know. I understand that, but that's why I was very confused. Right? Because it wasn't like you were running. It was just like you almost hit, I think, 115 miles an hour. All right? And then you just hit someone because you weren't paying attention. Were you looking at your phone?
No, trying to drive. No, I'm not looking at my phone.
The person was right in front of you. There's got to be a reason.
JR and Cornette could tell you he's just driving.
Yeah, Jim Ross said the same thing. I think Dutch said that he'd never get in a car with him for that reason. But also, his excuse was, right? His excuse was, it's my granddaughter's birthday. It's like, it's not going to be over.
A medical condition or anything?
I don't
Do you need an ambulance?
No, fuck, I don't think so.
All right. All right. Just your registration.
There is no sick.
Is your license in here?
No, it's in my pocket.
All right.
Did you hear that?
I'd have driven this car. Right
I heard the curse, and then I heard stupid something, right?
Stupid fool.
Dude, the airbags and everything deployed.
Thank you.
I honestly would have thought, because this is going to be someone else who's pulling up and talking to him, but I honestly would have thought he would have been like, I'm Vince McMahon, damn it, how dare you stop me, etc.
Well, the part where he goes, I saw the lights behind me, but they were kind of strange. They're called, they did
I'm the investigative
sirens.
trooper. Okay. So, how you doing? I know who you are. So,
Can you send out like Greenwich unit?
so Trooper Robbins that was following in the unmarked vehicle said you were doing over 100 miles an hour. All right, before you struck the vehicle. So,
It's got the same ring as my brother. I hate that ringtone.
all right, so I'm going to be issuing
I
you
think that was me.
misdemeanor summons for reckless driving.
Hold on.
Okay. So, it's just going to take me about 10 minutes to write it up. I'll give you a court date, probably within 3 weeks or a month. Do you reside in Connecticut? I'm not sure. Okay, so it'll be, where are we? Westport? Yeah.
There we go. That's pretty much it. So that's a pretty harsh crash, especially considering that it's not like the car wasn't going like a regular speed or like braked or anything like that. He just drove into it and then tried to swerve out the last second. How can he be that bad?
Well, you'd have to ask JR and Cornette and everybody else that ever drove with him. I think it's weird how he was tailgating and then he tried to lane change, but he had all the room in the world to do it, but he did it and clipped her back left tail light and bumper. Dude, he's lucky both of them didn't start like spinning out. What if the road was a little slick? They both would have hydroplaned, and you saw the airbags, all the curtain bags deployed in the Bentley. And then that woman, obviously, I mean, there's no footage of her, but we know the story. She went right to Facebook afterwards, I believe, didn't she?
Yeah, she said she was fine at the time, ended up being a bit more banged up than she thought she would. I guess when the adrenaline wears off. I've never been in a car crash, really, like that. So, have you ever been in a car crash with all the roads you've travelled?
No, nothing like that. Knock on wood. I have not been any. There's little things, fender benders or whatever. But I'm going to tell you right now, the Merritt Parkway and highways like that. By the way, it's not a big highway. There's not a room.
I've heard it's really dangerous, that road.
It's dangerous. Nobody can try. There's a lot of Vince McMahons on that road. Trust me. But you got the guardrail right there, and then you have the ditch down there. Dude, if you're in the wrong spot, say that woman did get clipped, started spinning, and then went into the ditch, and it can flip or hit a tree or whatever. When I used to drive up and down, and how, God forbid, they have those people that have been killed in car crashes or drunk drivers. They usually have that little shrine with the cross and their picture and the flowers. Yeah, the Merritt Parkway had a bunch of those even back then.
I'm just looking at he got like $1,000 fine, and that was basically it. He was facing misdemeanor charges for reckless driving, and he got nothing for it. And then you look at that video, it's like, how did he not even have his life? I mean, he's like over 80. Was he 79 at the time? I don't know. But he's pushing towards 80. At that point, wouldn't you try and get him to retake his test again or something? For that kind of shocking driving. We have that problem here in Florida,
dude. We have dementia patients driving. All these people still, they do not retest. My theory would be you lose income that way. Registration fees, other stuff that have to do with vehicles. But I would have said, if I was a cop and didn't know him, he kind of sounded like he was slurring his speech, didn't he?
I think I don't think he would have been drunk. They would have tested him for that. But I think he just sounds that now.
It's just the way he talks. But I'm just saying, somebody could have really, then the second one came up and said, maybe that guy was usually you get back up anyway. Another car pulls up, but he knew exactly who Vince was. And obviously Vince is connected with everybody there. And like his former personal trainer was a cop way back in the day. He's actually the guy, remember the Raw where everybody was going to the rooftop? They had that opening on the roof where they fought on the roof back in the early Raw. The cop that was running with the gray hair and the flashlight, I believe, was his personal trainer.
Really?
Yeah, because I used to run into that guy at the gym all the time. They would train together.
He got, once again, he had to make $1,000 contribution to charity, and he got a 1-year conditional discharge, which means don't crash your car again for another year and you'll be fine. Then just the system resets itself.
I'm sure we'll get comments about a 2-tier justice system and all that stuff, and this is kind of an example of that.
It's funny, this article from yahoo.com is alarming Vince McMahon car crash footage sparks backlash and the internet slams 2-tier justice. That's the exact phrase they use.
Okay.
So, we were going to talk about the Janelle Grant thing. You've not seen it yet. There's not really much to say other than I guess she was just like way more mousy and like demure than I thought she would be. I think that's pretty much all that's to be said about it. So the next thing that's happening now is in June, there's going to be a hearing to see whether that case goes to arbitration or goes to civil court, which is going to be the big question to be asked. And then from there, if it does go to civil court, then it goes to the discovery period, and that's when things are going to get really interesting.
So it's actually reversed, because usually don't these things start with criminal proceedings and then go to a civil case, or the family brings up, like with the O.J. Simpson thing, it was a criminal case. Then they had a civil case against him after that.
In this sense, the one thing I did get out of the Janelle Grant speech was that she said that this was, I think it was originally going to be like an employment tribunal thing that ended up being launched into a civil case. And because of that, I don't know why it isn't a criminal case, quite frankly, but I think it was actually going to be less and has escalated to a civil lawsuit, essentially. But he's not going to be arrested. I'm pretty sure he's not going to be arrested. So there you go. You know, despite the FBI investigating him and spending misappropriation of company funds.
There seems to be a lot of that going around over the past few months or even years.
Doesn't there just be? All right, then we're going to say thank you, everybody, for watching. We'll be back again next Friday with, I think we're going to be talking about Elimination Chamber. I don't know if we're going to do a full review or not. There's not going to be many matches to review. I'll tell you that, if nothing else. These 4 match PLEs, for goodness sake. You get through them quick, if nothing else. But anyway.
Not us. Not us.
No. I watched the Rumble live as well. I'm not doing it this time. Okay then, so once again, thank you so much everybody for watching. We'll be back out every single Thursday now. I need to get out the frame of saying Friday. And over to Stevie to thank everybody, especially the Patreon supporters.
Thank you so much for watching episode 86 of the Stevie Richards Show. If you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing to the channel. Full episodes and clips 7 days a week, sometimes twice a day. Also, check out our podcast, the audio version of the Stevie Richards Show. Solo smartboard videos also will be coming back in future episodes. Take a drink. And of course, patreon.com/Stevie Richards. The $1 thank you brother tier, as well as the $8 producer tier. Watch alongs every Monday morning. Show notes every Tuesday morning. And of course, the show before the show, the pre-show every Thursday morning. All 3, 9 a.m. Eastern Time here in the States. Once again, can't say it enough. Thank you for watching this episode. See you next week for episode 87 of the Stevie Richards Show. Aha.